industry track of GEO Week. Yesterday we had a very good and interesting day, and Kamal did the Master of Ceremony job, and I will try to follow in his footsteps today. Justin, can you please put the agenda of the day up? Yeah. So today we have two keynotes, one from Alia on the Global Partnership for Mutual Growth, and then Esther will talk about a partnership for geospatial in Africa. And we're going to continue the exercise we did yesterday on company profiling, and we're going to have two new judges to give the thought and suggestions to the companies that we have selected. That will be followed by a panel discussion on public-private partnerships in the business model in the Earth observation sector. You're going to have only a 5-minute break, and then another panel on the funders, on funders. And with that, we're going to wrap up the day and leave you with another networking session. One thing to note is that today is divided into 3 sessions. So the first one will cover the keynote and the company profiling. And no, the keynote, and right after the company profiling, I think you're gonna have to rejoin the session because of some technical issues, and you will go through the second part of the day and then rejoin for the network session. So there are 3 parts in today's session of the industry track. So, and we will make sure that you guys are aware of the break when we need one, or to when it's time to open a new link, to go through a new link. And due to a conflict that I have with my own calendar, I will do the MC role only for the first part, and then I will leave you in the very good and capable hands of my colleague Satarupa. We will take over when I leave. With all that being said, let me invite Alia here for a keynote on the Global Partnership for Mutual Growth. Alia, over to you.
Everybody, I'm very happy to be here in this keynote, and I will talk a little about what Alia Nanosatellites, a company here from Brazil, going global, expanding our activities in a global way, what we are doing to make it happen as a company for the Earth observation. I will share my screen just a minute, please. Can you see my screen? Can you see, Albert?
Yes, Alia.
Okay, thank you. So I will present to you Alia Nanosatellites Constellation Earth Observation. We are a company that we are a pioneer private space company based in Salvador, Bahia, in Brazil, and we are expanding to France at this moment. We have 3 main activities: the nanosatellites constellation, our calibration fields and simulation area, in our ground station. All this to guarantee that our nanosatellites constellation, we are going to have a very good shared mission with more companies with us in these missions of our constellation, and then we go as this way as in one of the SDGs of the global partnership that we are doing, aiming all the mutual growth of everybody that are with us. We are going to offer to the market the hyperspectral data that we will produce with our nanosatellites constellation, with our camera, with our sensors. It will be able, we will be able to offer this to B2C as our Alias platform, as Alias platform for the farmers, for the mine exploration, for the oil and gas, for the clean energy, for the environmental protection, for institutes, ONGs, academy. And the same, we can offer the hyperspectral data as a brutal way for the partners and they can process this in their platform, so they can be specific in each one of this section, this sector, so they can use our hyperspectral as a service, so we can guarantee security with cybersecurity, blockchain, legal agreement. We can really ensure the reliable of the data of the, because we have the calibration fields, the simulation area. We are giving accessibility with low prices, with different antennas locations all over the world. All our efforts is just to provide a valuable and reliable imagery data for smart solutions. So this is the second activity of ALIA, that it's the calibration fields and the simulation areas to guarantee our reliable area, that we are going to have this here in the farm that I'm in this moment here is in Tucano, Bahia, that we will have our calibration fields. Our simulation area, we can use a lot of different situations of the soil, of the vegetation, of the measures that we need to do for the carbon and then the water. We are going to have a lot of simulation of each one of the things, so we can produce a lot of parameters that can be used not only on our constellation of satellites. They can use it, this parameter, for any kind of other constellations of satellites, because we will produce this all the time. And this kind of production that we are doing here in our situation or our climate can be replicable in as many as possible countries in the same situation of us, like semi-arid, so they can use this for their vegetation or recognitions of their soil. We are going to train the IoT also in the same place, producing the clean energy with the solar panel, with the windy energy, and with the thermal water that we have on this place here in Tucano, in Bahia, Brazil. We are offering monitoring this hyperspectral camera that can be impacting many SDGs. Here in Brazil, when we do this, we are improving our economy. We are taking people out of the poverty. We are producing food, so we are taking out people from the zero. We are getting the zero hunger. Out of the zero hunger, they can produce this food here. We are improving the industrial innovation and infrastructure as the mine exploration, and we are giving the possibility to the oil and gas as a responsible consumption and production, not to have so many problems like spilled oil in the ocean like this. We can impact on the environmental protection also in the climate action, because we are here in the situation of climate that it's very changeable. So we are having the expertise of managing this, and then if we use the monitoring of the satellites, we can use this for many impacts as possible for the life below water and more other things. Here in Paibiru farm, we have a kind of changing climate, because we have a very different climate. Some years we have just without rain, some years with many rains. So with this kind of situation, we are working so much on this kind of monitoring, not to have the hydric stress of the plants, and to avoid many problems of the crop. So in this way, we are impacting on the climate change as the same. We are going to have the ground station here in the same place here in Tucano, in the farm, so we can receive this data, we can transfer this data, we can have the command and tracking of any kind of satellites that it's passing by Brazil, and we can receive the data, the scientific data, to distribute here, that we will do this a lot. And in the same thing in our second side, in very near from Equator, we're going to have our second side of the ground station. We are sharing our antennas also, because we'd like to have more located places in the world to give us the possibility to have more imagery for the place that we are passing or the places that we are aiming. So sometimes we prefer here in Brazil to be measuring all the time, and then we can transfer our data in another country, so we can have this in the better way to use more time of our sensors. so we can offer to the market as our ground station services, the rocket tracking and telemetry, the satellite and constellation management, and the satellite receiving data from many kind of constellation, from many satellites in orbit. It's not only for the Alias nanosatellites. And for that, we are ensure that we are going to have very, very good protocols of security with the private cloud, with cybersecurity, with blockchain, with security legal agreements, just to guarantee that all this can be happen with a very good way for everybody in a very security way. We have partners at our home. First of all, I'm the CEO of the company. I'm the CEO and the founder of Alien Nanosatellites. My vision and our vision is to improve professionals to solve complex problems, exploring space technologies for sustainable development, bringing solutions that matter to the citizens' daily lives. So as this moment that we are impacting on the quality education, on the decent work and the economic growth, in the reduces of the inequalities, in the industry of innovation and infrastructure. I can say about the gender equality also, me as a female leader, I'm inspiring many women and girls to do things as going as leadership and do whatever they would like to do with their lives. We are having a very good team with us in Alia, CTO, CLO, COO, CIO, everybody who can make Salia as a very good company with a lot of capability of giving very good products. We have very good advisors also. This is all our partnership in home. And at home, we are going to have a very good legal advisor conseil, just to be all the time discussing all the things that we need for being the space sector, for the peaceful use of the space. We are all the time discussing the things, how can we be and participate on all this movement of commercial, of the industry, of the space sector, to be with everybody together discussing all the time the situations of the things. So we can have a lot of another partnerships that we should do in our countries. My country is not a country that I can receive so much financial support, but I can receive a lot of technical support. So I go to the technological centers, to the institutes, to the academy, to the incubators of Brazil, and in some countries also, just to receive from them all technology that I need to have for my company to be succeed on our mission. As the same for the associations. We really need to have space allies as associations like Stella Modal Association, 14 Bis that it's from France, Aliança of startups here in Brazil that we have to discuss more with the governor, to discuss more with the law, just to have more support from the law for our activities here in Brazil. We have the Consul of Toulouse, of Brazil in Toulouse, to work with us with all the things that we need to change between our global partnerships there in France from here in Brazil. I've been in many places as possible to be talking. This is something that we really need for this industry, that we in dialogue all the time with the people in conferences, in forums, in places that we need to share our ideas. We need to discuss more our ideas because we are in the beginning of all this. We are pioneer on some countries, so we really need to be there participating on all this movement as in the same situation of the other countries and in the same situation that can help and solve a lot of problems, all everybody together. So I'm in on all this, and for this we have a lot of commercial allies for mutual growth. Like I'm saying, we really need to have more people with us to grow together, to have all this mission done. And like, if we'd like to prove that we are into a very good mission, we need to go global. We need to go find the good companies that can offer to us more possibility to be there in their expertise, to use their expertise into our company to grow more and more and to go to the next step. And that's why we have a lot of commercial partners nowadays all over the world going to this to another SDG, that it's the global partnership, that we can have all this for a global mutual global partnership for this growth of everybody. So this is Alia Nanosatellites. This is something a little about what we are doing for foster this sector with the startups, with the little companies that can be that can grow a lot and can have a very good relation with everybody and go global with our products to make it happen in a good way. So thank you everybody for the attention of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Ayla, for this great presentation. And it's very good to hear from new players in this arena. So it's good to know about the effort of Alia Nanosatellite Constellation, and also to see how what you do is connected to the GEO program. And I think Alia is already an associate member of GEO. And if you are not, I would really encourage you to consider that. And I don't see any question on the chat. But if you have any question for Ayla, please feel free to drop it on the chat, and we will make sure to bring her up and to answer those questions. So once again, thank you so much, Ayla.
Thank you
The
also,
next
Albert.
yeah, the next presenter is Esther Ogbu, and she will talk about the partnership for geospatial in Africa. And Esther is a strategy director at strategy and business development deputy director at Sambus Geospatial. Esther, over to you.
Thank you very much, Albert. Good morning, everyone. Hello. Hi, good morning. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're joining us from. Justin, would you be able to share my presentation, please? Oh, okay.
Hi, Esther. Sorry, I wasn't able to download your presentation.
Yeah, you have to share from your end, Esther.
Yes, I'm bringing it up. Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Okay, all right, great then. Great. Okay, so I'm quite excited to be here today. I attended the session yesterday, and it was really insightful. I like listening to some of the speakers talk about open data and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was particularly thrilled to hear about the GEO community of practice as a young person. And I'd like to say thank you to the group on Earth Observations for inviting me to speak and be able to share my perspective on the theme today. So like Albert said, I work with Sambos Geospatial. We are a private organization that provides geospatial solutions and services to a sub-region of West Africa. We represent Trimble and also represent ESRI within the West Africa sub-region. So in line with the theme today, I would be speaking on, or I chose to speak on partnerships for geospatial in Africa, and for us to discuss if that's already something that is a reality or is something that is still a dream within the African continent. And I'm not speaking on this just on my sole perspective. I reached out to some colleagues and some of my community members from the African Women in GIS, the African sub-region of the Women in Geospatial community, as well as the African Young Surveyors, to be able to gather perspectives on what people think about this, especially people in the private industry, to know if there's a cohesive collaboration between the government and the private sector in Africa. So I hope that you're able to pick something from what I discussed today, and you're able to contribute or find a way to contribute, and also find a way to influence your country or your community. So before I go into sharing what that perspective is, whether it's a dream or a reality, I wanted to share some context to the presence of private organizations in Africa, in the geospatial industry in Africa. And we can all say that since the 2000s, Africa has seen an increase in the development of Earth observation and geospatial technologies, as well as the private sector growing within the sector. And last year, a survey was carried out by Locate IT, which is a Kenyan-based company, on behalf of the African Union Commission. And they identified 165 private companies that are into Earth observation, geospatial, and allied technology services who have primary operations in Africa. And one of their findings is, I'm sure there are a lot more than these numbers, but they were able to identify and survey about 165 companies, which I know there are more than these, but let's take a look at these numbers for a second. Over the years, so before, as of the year 1999, there were just 18 private organizations in Africa. And by the year 2000, they experienced 156% growth to have 6 to 7 countries now in existence between the year 2000 and 2010. And by the year 2010, up until 2020, when the survey was taken, there was a 96% growth, which now found that there were 164 countries, 164 private companies rather, that were established in Africa. Projections were made based on this to say that if it was a 96% growth from the year 2010 till now, it means it's a 10% annual growth increment every year. So if we're going by those figures, we can say that by 2030, roughly double that amount of private companies will be existing in the geospatial sector. And by 2040, we'll probably have 4 to 5 times more of that number. And you can see here some of the things that were able to influence this growth by some of my research I did as well. We could see that several African countries built mini satellites. There was a development of a continent-wide observation infrastructure, which saw to the creation of several remote sensing and space agencies in different countries. There was also a rapidly increasing geospatial community in Africa, which also made sure that there was a proactive capacity development that was ongoing. And then, of course, there's local presence of several UN bodies, several international software and service providing organizations, just like Esri, Trimble, and the rest of them who are providing the geospatial and Earth observation systems that we use today. And there was also the introduction of a geospatial data infrastructure. And of course, in 2019, there was a launch of Africa Geoportal by Esri. So some of these things can show that, okay, this could be a reason why we saw this growth incremental over time. And these are things that we can say that they are still developing. And what was interesting to also note was that around the same time in 2016 and subsequently in 2018, the Association of Remote Sensing of the Environment and the European Association of Remote Sensing Companies carried out similar surveys and were able to get similar results as well. So as I mentioned, some of those factors that influenced the growth, they saw that there were benefits that also arise from the presence of these companies. It included increase in employment and in the Earth observation and geospatial field, which of course saw that more young people got introduced into the field, more awareness was created in the region, there was a larger user community, there was active participation. And then of course, we saw societal and infrastructural benefits to both government agencies, non-governmental organizations, academic and research institutions. As some of the companies in the survey were able to testify that the government agencies were the largest category of their customers, with about 88% influencing their or getting their products and services. So going from this context, I was now able to do a survey within the communities I mentioned earlier, the African Women in GIS, Africa Young Surveyors Network. And I decided to find out what was going on in other countries, because I'm originally from Nigeria. I'm currently based out of the country, but I have an understanding of how the Nigeria sector operates. And being that I work in a company who services West Africa, I also had an insight into that space. But I was curious to see what was happening in other African zones. So the survey, I was able to get about 80 respondents to get this information from, of which 30% of them worked with government institutions in their various countries, while the other 70% worked with private organizations. And the majority of the responses were across West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. So when asked if there was a geospatial strategy that existed in their country, about 50% of them said yes, about 40% of them said that yes, there was. About 50% were not sure if there was a geospatial strategy that was existing or not, and 10% said there wasn't. And bear in mind that these are people who work in the geospatial sector, so they weren't just anybody. So they had an idea of how their countries operate. And then when also asked who the main driver or influencer of geospatial collaboration was in these countries, you can see that 60% of them said that both the government institutions and the private sector were both influencers, while 40% says that only the private organization was a driver of geospatial collaboration. So we can see that the answer is a bit skewed at this point. Then going further to ask what the level of geospatial impact and contribution is in the country, whether it was a gradual growth with evident progress between 5 to 10 years, we can see that 50% said yes, that was the case. And whether it was a stagnant growth, where it has remained the same within the past 5 to 10 years, 10% said yes to that. And whether there was a high and positively impacting growth, whether there were favorable policies, environments to permit cohesion and a rapid growth evidence over the past 3 years, we can see that 20% agreed to that. And if there was a quick decline with no positive growth, there was a 10% that agreed to that as well. Then finally, when asking if the government openly supported geospatial efforts in the country, 50% says they're not sure, and 40% says yes, while 10% says no. And so most of, especially for this bit that talks about the level of geospatial impact, where we saw 20% talk about how it's been high and positively impacting, I noticed that a lot of those responses came from Kenya and from Nigeria, where they stated several projects as part of that contribution and collaboration across the state cadastral and land administration projects, food security development partnerships, as well as monitoring and assessment of degraded forest reserves in the country. So I'm not going to conclude whether these partnerships have become a dream or a reality, because I'm sure this is a focused sample of people, but you get the idea of how this collaboration is perceived between the private sector and the government sector. So I'm going to finally, okay, yes, this is my last slide. So I'm going to now talk about ways how we think, both from my perspective and the perspective of people who I was able to speak with, on ways we can improve this public-private partnerships in Africa. The first thing I think we'll need to do is, first of all, to encourage our governments to create good legislation policies, because what this will do is it will encourage more geospatial opportunities, and it will encourage collaboration as well. And if there's an active stakeholder engagement and dialogue, this will improve awareness and sensitization, mostly within the government institutions, because a lot of them have not moved from the analog to the digital. A lot of them, we still find a lot of our agencies doing things the analog way. So we need to be able to have that dialogue with them to get them to move, to get them to be aware that there are more efficient ways they can do these things. There are more efficient analysis they can use to get the results that they want. We can see that, of course, encourage private participation in national building and problem solving. Of course, increase the government investment in the private industry. Some of the things that we're seeing in the past is when the private industry is carrying out projects, a lot of the support is coming from multinational non-government organizations who are funding the project, but very little resources are coming from the government itself. Then we could, of course, work towards updating the existing geospatial database within the African countries, which will help to work towards a national spatial data infrastructure. Then, of course, the openness and transparency of data. This is something that we're still working actively towards in a lot of the African countries, but working towards open and transparency data, it's good. I think it was Buvimbo that talked about open data yesterday. So things like that can be incorporated more in our geospatial policies, our geospatial strategies within the African country. And of course, with things like the Africa Geoportal that Esri launched in 2019, that also encourages an open data community within Africa. So if you can also encourage a lot of the governments to set up their country geoportal pages where people can actively contribute, where the young people can share their data on projects they're working on, where private organizations can contribute to the amount of data that a country can harness, that would be a good thing. Then not finally, but then Africa playing a role in the global geospatial industry. Within the past couple of weeks, we've seen a lot of global geospatial events. There's the Africa GIS, which is holding this week. There's the Geospatial World Forum, which held 2 weeks ago. There was the COP26, which just concluded very recently. Africa's involvement in those kinds of events are very limited. And then even when they are involved in it, we find out that it's a lot of the private sector driving that presence, more so than having a uniform and one voice from the government in partnership with the private sector. The African continent would also do good to have more geospatial partnerships with other world regions and learn how they build their own spatial data infrastructure so that we can replicate the same thing, but in a more local context. Then very finally, it will be good to develop a geospatial industry cluster in the political space. So this will say that we need to have political champions who also have the political will to drive and ensure the effective integration of geospatial information in analysis in decision making within African countries. Because without that, the private sector can speak endlessly and there'll still be no buy-in from the government. So with this, I hope you've been able to learn something, pick out a way that either you in your individual capacity, in your government or political capacity, or with your private sector affiliation as well, help to drive partnerships with the private and public sector in Africa. Thank you very much. Thanks, Albert.
Thank you so much, Esther, and thank you for your presentation that show the growth of geospatial industry in Africa. And even though there are some challenges, and it's good to notice how things have evolved, for the past 20, 30 years. And some of your recommendations also are very welcome. And thinking about PPP, public-private partnership. As you know, there is a panel discussion on the topic later today, and I hope your insight will be also very valuable for that discussion. So let's now move to the next element of today sessions, which is the company profiling. Yesterday we had 9 companies presenting themselves to the audience, and Pat and myself were kind of giving them some advice. So today we have 7 new companies that we want to introduce to you. And as panelists, we're going to have Dr. Tao GEO, who is the Vice President of PSAT. We will have Hervé Common, who is the Program Manager at TerraDuo, and Xiaofen Huang, who is the founder and CEO of Das Specials. So those 3 panelists will provide their comments when the companies present themselves. So the 7 companies that we have, we're going to start with a company from South Africa called Sinu Lakes, and his founder and CEO is Dr. Mark Matthews. And please, Mark, the floor is yours. Yes, as you can see, Dr. Mark Matthew connection is taking a little while. I will suggest that we go to the next one while we fix the connection with Mark. So can we have GEO represented by Roxanne Bandini-Mader, the co-founder and the co-CEO from Australia? So can we have Roxanne present, and then we'll come back to you, Mark. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, or good morning, or good afternoon. So I hope you hear me well. So I'm going to share my screen.
Yes, we can hear you very well.
Great. So can you see my screen now?
Yeah, yes, we can.
Okay, great. So thank you for having GeoNeon tonight or today. And GeoNeon is a small business based in Tasmania, in Hobart. And we are specialized in anticipating climate disaster impact using Earth observation. Climate change is accelerating the frequency of extreme weather events, and we also have a growing populations, that increase people affected by extreme weather events, and also some people don't know they live in hazard-prone areas. We also have aging assets which needs maintenance, and the funding for maintaining infrastructures is lacking, and sometimes companies or government decide to stop maintaining those infrastructures. So all these three components lead to unexpected events, which is such as interrupted services, cost blowout, cost of life, displays of communities, and the list is never ending. So while climatic disasters are inevitable, their impact can be significantly reduced by appropriate mitigation. So the solution GeoNeon offer is a preventing and data-driven approach to anticipate better before they happened, based on scientific knowledge, combined by advanced analytics, Earth observation, and deep learning. So the advantage is semi-automated. We can run model continuously with new data. You reduce site visit in remote area, and so you reduce also the risk of sending people in a hazardous area. We can see things that we couldn't see before, and it improves risk analysis capabilities because we provide new knowledge. It's accurate and reliable. It's worldwide cover, near real time, and you can go back in time with historical data. You can make some change detection through the years. So it reduces the cost of monitoring and planning and executions. We have a three-step process. So when we gather satellite imagery, we use convolutional neural network to automatize land use segmentation. It can be any infrastructures or any land use component, buildings, roads, tree canopy, or anything. We then compute hazard susceptibility by focusing on the pre-existing condition for hazard to be triggered. So we don't do a likelihood, or we don't do the recurrence of the hazard. We really look at all the pre-existing condition of a hazard to happen. We look at where it's spatially distributed. We then compute exposure and vulnerability calculation, which will inform decision maker. The example here is the city of Hobart, where we live. We did a study, vulnerability analysis of the infrastructure to debris flow and rockfall. The city of Hobart had 3,000 buildings missing in the database. So with our deep learning model, we could close this gap. And we really needed those buildings to have accurate vulnerability analysis. They also had only lines for roads. So with our model, we could, with the segmentation we did, we could have the width of the roads, which was really important for our model. And also we needed an understanding of the vegetation cover. So we did vegetation a canopy, tree canopy model. So then we assign a value per meter square, and the value the city of Hobart were interested was the replacement value of the assets. So we incorporated all the assets and all the replacement value per meter square in a grid of 10 meters by 10 meters. And each cell has the info about the type of infrastructure, the value of the combined infrastructure in each cell, the value of each single infrastructures. We also put a socioeconomic index in it, and the decision maker can switch between, he can change the metrics if he wants, but he can change also if he wants to see only the buildings, only a type of buildings, only a type of roads. So it's very flexible. We choose the replacement value because this is the city of Hobart need, but energy companies are more interested, for example, to loss of productivity per day, or cost of business interruption. So you can use also number of cars using the roads, number of walkers on tracks, anything. You can put any metrics in it. So this is close zoom in of the Pinnacle Road in the Mount Wellington. This is a mountain which is above the city of Hobart. And you can see the medium replacement value of the roads and the low replacement value of all the little tracks in purple. And in yellow, you have high replacement value at the top, where there is a big antenna and also some tourist facilities. Then we computed the hazard susceptibility classification, and here this is the example of Rockfall. So for flood hazard and land instability such as Rockfall, landslide, and debris flow, we work in collaboration with a Swiss startup called Terranum, and they develop a software called Floa, who can source where there is rocks which can detach from a rock face and they run out of it. So it's based on pre-existing conditions. So what will be the geology, what will be the historical event, the topography, the vegetation cover, which has a protective role, and the break of the topography. And after we can really see where it's more susceptible to happen. So then we combine we add the hazard modeling into the grid I showed you before in the infrastructure model, and we can calculate the vulnerability. So for that we put a weight to the hazard modeling, and we do the intersection with the replacement value. So and it's very it can actually identify all the hotspots in a large area where you need to have more detailed analysis. This is analysis with a regional scale. So it's as accurate as it can be as a regional scale. But if you want to really understand the risk, the frequency, you can really use that to prioritize your area and to see like, okay, where is my high economic vulnerability? What does it cost to replace the road when a hazard to happen? For example, on this road, multi rockfall happened, and they fixed the road each time. So they can make a better decision to say like, okay, do we close these roads permanently and put a cable car, for example, or do we let only the walkers or the bike rider going on these roads instead of actually having too much traffic? So you can really make informed decision. So for the decision maker, after they have a very good understanding of where are the buildings, where are the roads, where is the vegetation, for example, and they have an understanding of multi-hazard, landslide, heat, flood, bushfire, and they can we can produce graph. So there is the maps and also the graph. So if they want to compare between metrics, for example, understanding, okay, what are the infrastructure which are more vulnerable to landslide, or what are the infrastructure are so much more vulnerable to flood, and they can really look at those comparisons and make decisions about mitigation. And you can also look at with the socioeconomic data we started to put in. You can really understand what is the community resilience to what is the capacity to bounce back for natural disaster if it happens. So we support government and infrastructure owner about climate disaster risk reduction to reduce the number of people affected, direct cost, and disruption of critical services. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Roxanne. So I was informed that Hervé could not join us, so we're going to have only two panelists, Dr. Tao and Dr. Siafin. So let me start with Dr. Tao. Please, your reaction.
Okay, it's very impressive. I'm wondering a simple question: who will be the end user for your technology?
So cities are quite quite interested in our methodology, because they can really look at they can really plan their infrastructure, also look at the maintenance of the infrastructures. So cities are big end user, and government in general, and also we did this type of analysis for hydropower companies.
Okay, I understand. Actually, the question why I ask it, because if the end user is government authorities, it's kind of a 2G business. But if you can expand to the company, to the business, it's a 2B business. It's much more sustainable. I mean, I can see your technology is quite good, and also multiple applications, and also benefit to the society. That's really good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Dr. Xiaofen. We cannot hear you, Xiaofen. I think an issue with your microphone. Can you maybe use the computer microphone instead? No, we still can't hear you. No. Yeah, can you try to speak again? I saw a green light. Yes, so Xiaofen, I would suggest that you disconnect and try to reconnect again. And sorry, Roxanne, so we will have to
That's
to
okay.
move to the next participant. So you will miss the insight from Xiaofen, but I will make sure that he can reach out and share his thoughts with you.
No worries. Yeah.
So once again, thank you, Roxanne, for your presentation.
Thank you
So
very much.
yeah, and sorry everyone with all the technical issues that we may have here and there. So let's bring back Mark Matthews, who is the founder and CEO of Sinu Lakes. So Mark, I hope the issue is resolved. So the floor is yours.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to share with you about our company, Sinu Lakes, today. I just want to check that you can see my screen there.
Yes, we can.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so Sinu Lakes is a company that was South African business that was started in 2015. We won the Copernicus Masters Ideas Challenge for satellite Earth observations and launched on the basis of that outcome. Let me just set my timer here so I respect the time limits. My name is Mark Matthews, founder and director of Sinu Lakes. And for those who are not familiar with what cyanobacteria is or what we do, we monitor cyanobacteria blooms using satellite imagery. Cyanobacteria blooms affect the world's lakes. It's a major cause of concern, particularly for potable water supply due to taste, odor, and toxin issues, as well as being a significant public health threat due to the same issues resulting from toxins, as well as just general degrading the appearance and the suitability of water for all types of recreational water use. Many instances, you can think of the Olympic Games in China, which was affected by bad cyanobacteria blooms. Many instances of animal poisonings and deaths. You think of the elephants which died in Botswana a couple of years back, suspected to be cyanobacteria caused. And so really we're dealing with a global crisis here of pollution in our lakes, warming climates, and fortunately we have satellite technologies which can actually give us real-time information on what's happening and solve a number of issues. And how we have aimed to solve this problem, our first solution is our mobile app, which is our Sinu Lakes app, available on the App Store and through Google Play. You can go and download it, your weather app for lakes. And what the aim of this application is to protect public health with free and open information from satellites. It's meant to be a very intuitive and simple design, which gives you an idea of the safety for recreational water use at lakes in your neighborhood. What are the features of the application? It provides you with cyanobacteria health risk levels and pollution levels. These are based on World Health Organizations and EPA guidelines. What is the cyanobacteria health risk level? It's simply derived from the concentration of cyanobacteria in the water, classified into 4 different thresholds, from low to very high. And the same thing in terms of the pollution level. It gives you an idea of the amount of algae in the water, which is often associated with human sources of pollution. You're able to add any lake on the globe with some size limits. You can easily manage your lakes using a list and add the lakes that are relevant for you. If you upgrade to our premium subscription, which is a monthly or an annual subscription, you're then able to access interactive high-resolution imagery, value-added products, such as the image shown on the middle of the application here, as well as alerts and notifications. So you'll never be in a position where you go down to your local water body again without knowing if there is a high-risk alert. And this just shows you the uptake of the mobile app so far. We launched in November 2020 with a free version, and we released the paid version now in October 2021. As I said, it's available on Android and iOS. Go ahead and download it and give it a try. Please rate it on the App Store and send us your feedback and input so we can improve it. Then the other sector, what we offer is for water companies and non-profits who are responsible for monitoring water quality for potable use or recreational use. And this is our Sinu Lakes web app, which is our enterprise offering specifically aimed at the water utility sector. And the aim of this product is to provide actionable information for decision-making and operational tasks for water professionals. The features of this product is an intelligent dashboard, which gives you key metrics on your water bodies, data upload and validation tools, enabling the users to upload their own data and visualize it and compare it with the satellite information. This features many advanced features, such as the ability to have email alerts and updates, as well as generate reports and investigate the data using charts and time series, and much more. Now, we have piloted this technology over the last 3 or 4 years with some leading utilities in Australia, as well as in South Africa, as well as free trials with utilities in Europe and the US as well. We have been featured by the Isle Utilities Technology Approval Group, as well as the WRF Technology list. And so this technology has been vetted and assessed and recommended for use for water utilities. So if you are a water utility, we encourage you to get in touch and we can set up a demo for your lakes. And then just to provide a story from one of our customers, that would be Hunter Water Corporation in Australia. They tested the product over a period of a number of years and did their own assessment on the product. And this is what Dr. Abigail Morrow from Hunter Water Corporation, Newcastle, Australia, said. Sinu Lakes provided up to 3 weeks advanced warning of cyanobacteria blooms compared with routine in situ monitoring, and is invaluable in providing sufficient time for operational decision-making in preparation for severe bloom conditions and the accompanying microcystin or taste and odor contamination treatment issues. So our vision as a company, what we're trying to do is create real value for our customers using Earth observation data, while also improving public health with free offerings as well. So yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to pitch our company to you. And go ahead, download the mobile app and see if it works for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark. So Siafen, let's start with you just to see if your issue has been solved. So please, the mic is yours. Yeah, unfortunately, we can't hear you still. So while you're trying to fix the issue again, let's go to Dr. Tao. Your reaction?
Hello, Dr. Mark. So your technology actually, I believe, is quite useful for the most developing countries. And I have a small, simple question. You are using you are mentioning you are using the satellite data. So do you mind telling us what kind of data you are using specifically? Hello, Mark. Hello, Mark. Can you hear me? So actually, I'm concerned whether the data is available for the developing countries if we apply your technology to those areas.
Mark, can you hear the question?
There's something wrong with his network, I think.
Yeah, can you hear Mark? We cannot hear you.
Maybe you could repeat it to me.
Okay, please.
Okay, so
no, I can't. I can't hear. I can hear you, Albert. Okay. I can hear you.
Okay, so Tao, can you please repeat your question?
Okay, so let's go to a simple one. What kind of satellite data you are using for your service?
Yes, it is all based on Copernicus Earth observation data, the European Copernicus program.
Okay, I see. So those data are free available for the developing country, right? In my understanding.
It's free and open data for any country around the world. So it's the Copernicus Sentinel-3 and Sentinel-2 missions. That's the data that we make use of.
Super. Okay, thank you very much. Very excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. And let's move to the next company, which is AQST Canada Inc. And the presenter is Govinder Chauhan, who is the CEO of AQST. So Govinder, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me all.
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Govinder.
Can you hear me all?
Yes, we can.
I'm trying to share my screen. Somehow it's not letting me.
And we can see your screen too. So please go ahead.
Can you share my presentation? Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's been a great honor and pleasure to be part of this networking group. And I see a great product. Yesterday, I attended the whole event, and even today, amazing company. So it's a great honor to be here, and thank you very much for the organizer to giving us an opportunity. So AQST stands for Advanced Quantum Scientific Technology. So what you have seen, we are a little bit of different company. Like we are providing a turnkey solution. That means in terms of hardware from the satellite perspective, as well as the final solution. And that means we incorporate all the analytical as well as provide you the end result. So basically what we do, we encapsulate all the problems what you have and we provide a solution to you. So it doesn't matter what kind of, you will see the further slide. So we are based across the globe. So we have offices in USA, Australia, India, Ukraine, Berlin, had offices in Canada. We have office in UAE and offices in Indonesia. So we have been lucky enough to be part of the United Nations Regional Committee on Geospatial Information on specifically on the disaster management. And here we are providing a lot of analytical services and data to various organizations across the globe. And we do have some PPP projects going on in Africa with some various governments, specifically for the crop monitoring and as well as weather forecast. These are the three key things which we are offering to many, many countries across the globe. And below you can see some of the other satellites. These are our own satellites. So currently we have 7 satellites in space, and they have different resolution, starting from 50 centimeter right now up to 1.52 meter.
Excuse me, Kevin. There,
Yes.
Justin is controlling your presentation, so please let her know when you want to move to the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So now the slide that we are seeing is the slide
Perfect. Okay.
introduction with vision. Is it where you want to be?
Okay, so I had changed a little bit. Okay, so we can go back to this slide.
Okay.
So we are about $500 million company, and these are some of the customers and across the continent we are working with. And on the right side, left side, you can see the services we offer. We have satellite manufacturing, downstream, data analytical. So we provide a complete turnkey solutions, whatever you are looking for. You can go to the next slide, Justin, please. So this was the slide I was referring to. So we are a global company. We have offices in the USA. We have had offices in Canada, of course. We are based in Berlin, UAE, Indonesia, Ukraine, India, and Australia. Next slide, please, Justin. So we've been lucky enough to be part of the United Nations Regional Committee, specifically focused on disaster management. Sorry, I had to repeat it again. We have been providing solutions to various problems. For example, crop monitoring, weather forecast, offshore, oil rigs, communications, monitoring communication spectrum, airplane monitoring, IoT, IOM. So these are the solutions are incorporated into our product portfolio. And we have about 150 people just for the analytical services, where we do different type of development of data that we use our own software, some of the Python databases. Our satellites are based from, right now we have 7 satellites in orbit from 50 centimeter all the way to 1.2 meter. We will be launching another mission in June 2022 and another one in 2023, which will have a 30 centimeter resolution. And then we are also working on development of a SAR, which will be 80 kilogram category, which will give you some meter SAR resolution. This will be the one of this kind. Next, Justin, please. So these are the different modeling we do. So we have a full analytical, as I mentioned earlier. We have developed algorithm analytical, where we provide all type of agriculture monitoring. In fact, we have quite a big contacts in Thailand, India, as well as in Indonesia, where we provide a crop monitoring, forecasting, as well as for specifically for the rice field. We do a lot of work where we can look at the water, how much water has been provided to the crops, as well as we also do a lot of work for the trees. For example, in Indonesia, palm trees and eucalyptus tree. So we do a lot of analysis, how many trees are per square kilometer, and even we can tell you the size of the trees, like a trunk of the tree, like if what's the diameter, and how many trees are in per square kilometer. And in the next phase, we are developing a new technology where we'll be able to tell you how much fertilizer has been applied to the particular crop or agriculture. So this way we can control a much better way of forecasting the agriculture products, and as well as we can see that if the agriculture is giving a proper yield or not. So this is being used a lot by the banking and insurance industry. So we work a lot with the insurance, banking, and the banking industry as well. So we have different type of machine learning objects which we have developed, and as well as different type of statistic algorithm and data processing processes where we can do all type of analysis, doesn't matter what kind. Next slide, please. So these are the typical what we can offer, all type of solution. For example, anti-terrorism, maritime domain awareness using our own ADB, maritime domain databases. Then we have asset detection, identification systems with the global network of all our ground stations. Border management, we can look at the border management and traffic going across the borders. Piracy, that's the same thing, specifically in the sea, where we can see, look at the boats where a lot of piracy is taking place. Natural resource protection, mining, and we are also looking at the shafts for the mining. If there's anything dangerous happening, we can forecast or we can predict if there will be any danger to the miners working under the mines. So we can look at the shaft and we can look at that how deep the pits are and if there is any danger to anybody. So we do that type of analysis. Ice monitoring, search and rescue, as well as navigation safety. We have developed a couple of systems for the navigation for GEO. Next. So this is our next generation satellite, which is coming up next year, which will have all type of next generation solutions. For example, it will have 30 centimeter resolution. We have 40-50 centimeter diameter, 3.8 meter focal length. I can go through if you anybody interested in, or we can have an offline discussion on this one. Next slide, Justin, please. So this on the bottom, you can see that this is a new satellite which we are developing right now, what we call GraviSat. So this will be world's first satellite to predict the disasters, specifically for the earthquakes. So by using a special technology which we have developed, we can predict 2 to 3 days ahead of any earthquake happening, as well as it can also monitor tsunamis. If any tsunami is happening, it can give them a warning to the tsunamis. So we did had a lot of discussions with the Japanese government and Indonesian governments. So we do have a letter of intention from them, and I welcome to anybody from here in the forum or anybody else who wants to be part of this group. I'll be more than happy to share this more information about this technology what we are developing and hoping to launch in end of 2022 or early 2023. Next slide, please. So what makes us different? What we are trying to do, we are trying to come up with the new technologies, for example, artificial intelligence and machine learning. But what we are trying to do, we are trying to do it on board. So we have a lot of onboard computing and onboard processing. What does it mean? That when the satellite capture image, we try to process on board. So once the system, the image is on board and process is on board on satellite, then you get a sort of raw image. Instead of getting KPM and bigger files of a few terabits, you get a real JPEG picture, which you can use for your analytical purpose. So that's making a lot of advantages to our customers. And second thing, what we do is we have developed a machine learning languages and algorithm where we apply to do the change detection. For example, from image which was taken a month ago versus today. So it's done automatically by our processing systems. So when they indicate, hey, last time there was this problem and this has been solved, or there was a flooding, water has gone up or down, or there was a fire or not fire. So we predict that type of things with the machine learning based algorithms. And we also have developed optical links where we can link all our constellation satellites. So this way we can share the data among satellites and among the user across the globe much faster. And this helps particularly specifically in the search and rescue missions or disaster management. And I think that's my last slide, Justin, if I'm correct. Yeah, so that's it. That's what it is. Our artificial intelligence based connected systems. So that's what it is. My last slide. Thank you very much. And if you have a question, I'm more than happy. So there is one question I see here. Don't understand correctly that you're working on a solution to predict earthquakes several days in advance. Yes. So basically, what we are doing based on tectonic plates. So we can look at the shift in the tectonic plates well before because of the vibration taking place in the Earth's crust. and it's so sensitive that we can predict it from the space. So that is basically technology we are implementing in our satellite or space-based assets. As you know, currently the technology is based on ground-based seismometers. So we are taking it to the next step to the space.
Okay, thank you, Govinda. Thank you for your presentation. So let's start with Yafen this time. Hopefully things are working.
Okay, so I think, can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, so so do we provide the data? So in our business model, do we providing the data or providing the service to the final end user?
Both.
Both. Okay. So
yes, it depends. We can do both. We can provide turnkey solution. We can provide from satellite all the way to the data or the or whatever result you need.
Which kind of project you prefer in this? Which kind of project for data service may be easier, or?
For us, since we have a lot of users, the team, we have about 125 people for our data analytical and services. So it's better if we can provide a turnkey solution for the data services rather than just the raw data.
So is the
You can tell us, hey, I'm looking.
Is the final end user stable? Do they change? Do we change our? I mean, is the customer buy our product every year or just buy one time and then the next year they won't buy our product?
No, usually we have a yearly contracts, so we provide them a yearly services. For example, every month, twice a month, we provide them reports. For example, the forest monitoring. So we do the monitoring for continuous for 5 years, 4 years. So we every 2 weeks we provide them reports, and we do the final reports. That means we do the analysis, we do the analytical. So we submit them a final report with the pictures, diagrams, data, everything.
Yeah, that's
so
good.
They don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's good.
We can pinpoint what exactly information we need from where we need. So we get that information, processes, and then find a solution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chef.
I think we lost connection with Dr. Xianfeng.
Yeah, we lost the connection with Dr. Tao. So, thank you, Govinda. So we're gonna just move to the next presenter, which is the company is D4D Insight, and Aditya Agrawal is the presenter, the founder of D4D Insight. So, Aditya, the floor is yours.
Great. Let me just confirm that you can hear me and see my screen.
We can hear you, and hopefully the screen is coming up. We can't see it yet.
Let me try again.
We can have Justin present for you, and you just okay. It's coming up now. Okay, we can see your screen. Great.
Okay, great. Is that me powering it, or is Justine doing that?
Justin, can you confirm who is?
Okay, great.
Right.
Okay, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks so much to GEO for this invitation. I'm going to speak a little bit about the work that we do at D4D Insights around building demand-driven approaches for sustainable development solutions. We really work at the intersection of strategy, engagement, and innovation to develop demand-driven digital solutions for sustainable development. And here you can see a snapshot of a number of the organizations around the world that we've worked with and are currently working with. As we all know, at the country level, there's a number of challenges that countries are facing around the world, everything from illegal mining to deforestation, agriculture and food security, disaster risk around floods and landslides and so forth. And these are a number of images from the African context. Obviously, these types of issues apply in many countries around the world. And as we all know, these are the types of challenges that Earth observations are very good at addressing. And we've been working over a number of years now with GEO in the work that they've been doing around how Earth observations can be better applied at the country level in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals and also the National Development Priorities. And here you can see a graph here on how GEO has done this work around how Earth observations can be applied to the different targets and indicators frameworks of the Sustainable Development Goals. And then there's also organizations like the UNGGIM that is also trying to build better connections between national statistical organizations and mapping agencies in terms of how geospatial and Earth observation data can be applied. So these are all important context in terms of thinking about how data, Earth observation data in particular, can be applied at the national level, taking into account regional and global frameworks. A lot of the work that we've been doing is in the context of supporting the establishment of digital Earth programs. And so within that context, there's been a lot of work that's been done in terms of engagement with countries who've really expressed a need for better access and capacity for applying Earth observation data to their national development priorities and sustainable development. And what Digital Earth is trying to do is provide an operational data infrastructure that's deployed in the cloud or locally, given the situation, where the infrastructure is hosted and managed and operated by the region for which the infrastructure is meant to support. And so products and services are meant to be responsive to the priorities of the countries within that region, using a multi-stakeholder type of an approach to create a data ecosystem around how that data can be applied. The way that we approach these programs, and this is obviously in partnership with institutions that are leading these programs, is to really kind of deploy a demand-driven approach. And by demand-driven, meaning really engaging with stakeholders at the country level or depending on what the scale that you're working at, around the needs and priorities to ensure that those services are built to be responsive. And these types of principles are the principles that we as a company really try to deploy in all the projects that we're working on. Be inclusive by design. So we want data to be effective towards policy and decision making, to be multi-stakeholder and partnership driven, and really be working with stakeholders to co-design the products such that they're fit for purpose and they can also support the kind of capacity development that's required. Ensure that there's representative governance. You need both top-down and bottom-up types of approaches to build the political support that's needed for these programs to be sustainable, but also really think about what's happening at the ground level to ensure that you're aligning to already ongoing projects and initiatives and programs. You're understanding the technical types of considerations such that the issues and needs are being addressed well. Really important. You have to build trust, be empathetic, really take the time to listen and understand who the user is and what problem you're trying to solve for. And then create an open data ecosystem such that if you have a core open data infrastructure that's scalable, you're really developing a platform that enables innovation, entrepreneurship, the scalability of how applications can be developed on top of that infrastructure. That process has allowed us to really understand some of the key challenges across different countries, both at the technical and institutional level. At the technical level, there's a number of challenges that countries are still facing around data quality and gaps, how dynamic or disaggregated the data are, the currency of that data, the accessibility and interoperability, capacity development, bandwidth continues to be an issue. And one of the key issues is really at the institutional level. Like the technical bits are things that can be solved for, but at the institutional level, it really takes trying to get people and organizations to work together in order to be able to solve these problems. And so cooperation across agencies is often lacking, resources are lacking, further capacity development and data literacy is required. There's policy gaps and partnerships are needed, especially with the private sector in terms of how to develop the types of innovations and solutions that are needed that are going to be scalable. And so some of the work that we've done is we supported the startup of the Global Partnership for Sustainable Development Data. And there was a country engagement process where we were working with 5 countries across Africa, where a number of those previous issues that were identified around access and capacity and use of Earth observation data, another process that GEO was involved in as we were going through this engagement process, led to the launch of the Africa Regional Data Cube. At the same time, when the Africa Regional Data Cube was launched for those 5 countries, we also knew that there was demand coming in more broadly across a number of other countries across Africa, which then led to the launch of Digital Earth Africa. And what that required was, so both GEO and Geoscience Australia commissioned us to create a business case for Digital Earth Africa that really looked at the institutional, political, technical, financial, and capacity types of factors in terms of how this program could be launched in a sustainable way, and most importantly, be a program that's owned and managed within an institution in Africa for the long term, such that the capacity, the skill sets across Africa could be leveraged as part of the program, and it's one that's going to be established in Africa in the long term, which is currently still going on. And so that was a program that was being led by Geoscience Australia, still being led by Geoscience Australia, and it's now in the process of transitioning the program management office to the South Africa Space Agency. So a number of the projects that we're involved in are around how to launch and catalyze these programs in a way that they are going to be sustainable, that they are going to be demand driven, and that they are going to create this ecosystem type of an approach. Currently, we're working with the Pacific community on a similar activity like Digital Earth Africa by launching Digital Earth Pacific for 22 member countries across the Pacific region. We're working with Tetra Tech on a Gates-funded project on enabling crop analytics at scale. We supported the development of an open data toolkit and standards for how ground truth data could become more openly available. And now we're starting to develop the business case for that facility in terms of how you create a sustainable business model for making those data free and open in the long term. We're also working with the Thunderbird School of Global Management on the launch of a global carbon removal partnership, a multi-stakeholder global partnership that's focused on scaling and accelerating carbon removal solutions. And finally, we're currently also working with the UN Environment Program on developing their data and digital integration strategy for how environmental data, of which there's going to be a large component around how Earth observations are better applied, can address environmental issues at the country level. So thank you very much. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much, Aditya. Xiafen, do you want to go first?
Okay, thank you. So when I hear this presentation, I had a feeling about it's like there are so many problems, complex problems to solve. So the problem like the political problem, financial problem, technical problems, and the project is so many different area project, the running project. To my understanding, the commercial problem should be very simple and direct. I just feeling there are too many problems to solve but the working is very, very great. this kind of work is very great, and I think people need to. The problem is difficult, but we still need to working on it. But for commercial, for the business, just give me the feeling of very complex, too many problems. Maybe less is more. We often say less is more. Simple is the best.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I take your point. I don't get much sleep. We don't get much sleep. But yes, these are large problems, but they do require a strategic approach. And I think often what's lacking is that there's usually there can be a build it and they will come kind of a mentality, which under certain scenarios that's okay. But when you're trying to develop uptake and use at a country level, you have to kind of develop a demand-driven type of an approach so that countries understand how these technologies and data can be applied. And so what we really do with these organizations is help develop the strategy and engagement approach, and support the operations and establishment of those programs until they can be taken on and managed by the core stakeholders within that region.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you both. Let me introduce the next company. So it is GeoCenter from the UK, and the presenter is Dr. Kim Partington. So Kim, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you see my screen and hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Your screen.
Great. Well, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to tell you a little bit about what we do at GeoCenter. I've been interested in all the presentations we've been listening to. They've been very good and insightful. I'm looking. What I'm going to talk about is how we leverage the power of imagery for enterprises. What I mean by that is how we give large organizations and institutions as well access to the global network of satellites to address whatever problems they have. So just a brief introduction to us. So we focused since we were formed on really trying to provide technology-enabled access to imagery from the wide range of satellite image providers. So we don't operate the satellite ourselves. We're not aligned with a particular supplier. We are independent, but we try to provide tools to enable users to access the data and do whatever they want with the data. So we have underpinning this is our platform Earth Images, which is a best-in-class platform technology. It aggregates imagery from the different suppliers. It provides a way of accessing, requesting fresh collection from the imagery providers as well, and it provides a number of other tools, and that's open for people to use. We have our expertise as well, so we're independent, as I mentioned, and we have the experience with numerous user cases to be able to help organizations that make use of the imagery, and then of course we have the supply network to build on. So we were founded 10 years ago. Within our platform, we have over 230 satellite sensors. That means not only the data, but the pricing models, mission planning, et cetera. We've licensed imagery to customers across 59 countries, and we have a healthy R&D program where we invest our profits and try and develop new technologies to move us forward. So what's the problem that we're addressing? Well, there are currently more than 900 satellites providing information on the condition of our planet. But of course, as everybody in this business knows, access to the constellation is very fragmented, which means that if you from a standing start, if you want to try and make use of this constellation, it is really an uphill battle, and it's very difficult to access multiple missions through one service. And this is a particular problem for large organizations, institutions, and enterprises that really want to access have a powerful way of accessing imagery from whatever source is most appropriate for their needs. So, for example, they might have to deal with multiple contracts. It's a challenging procurement exercise, multiple different licensing terms, different product specifications that are complex to people even in the industry, and numerous order forms and so on. It's very challenging, a very challenging environment. So we've developed a solution we called Earth Images for Enterprises. It's a single portal to access imagery from multiple sources, a secure cloud-based platform. It includes core imaging innovation built on our 10 years in the business. So this includes aggregated imagery from the different suppliers. There's the standardized tasking, image alerts, etc. Full service support from our team. Simplified procurement, so the imagery is procured through a single framework contract that then applies to multiple suppliers. Supplier lifecycle management, so it's simple to onboard and add new suppliers as they launch their satellites and become operational. It gives the customer flexibility, and they don't need to keep on top of what's being launched, where and when. And then budget management, so ensuring that spend on imagery is monitored and roles within the organization are given access to what they need to manage the program well. Just briefly mention the core imaging innovation that's built into Earth Images. We have the data catalog, which aggregates imagery from what we think is the largest supply network in the market. It includes currently 70 million images going back to 1982. That's non-commercial and commercial imagery. Our new Earth Images on Demand service, which basically broadcasts tasking requests for fresh collection of imagery to our supplier network for fulfillment, and there's only payment on successful collection, and it also allows users to access spare imaging capacity from the system. So there's significant cost savings to be made for fresh collection where the capacity exists. And then various corporate add-ons, including hosted image processing, API integration, OGC compliant services, and white label solutions for the platform. And in fact, our platform's been deployed for various organizations within the space industry already. So the two key benefits that we see for GEOS and the GEO program, firstly, standardized access to the global imaging constellation. So any organization trying to develop or exploit a Earth observation within a particular area or institution can use our system through APIs or through white label platform to basically give them that access to the global imaging constellation in one go. And then secondly, I think an important point in relation to some of the talks we've been hearing today, coordinated low-cost access to very high-resolution imagery from excess imaging capacity. So what I mean by that is that with the increasing number of satellites imaging the planet, the capacities are growing rapidly, and there's significant excess capacity in certain areas, which means that suppliers will accept significant reductions in the price of their imagery if they have that excess capacity. Within the business, it's called speculative imaging, speculative tasking, but we've systematized that and offer that as a service to customers so that they can, in some cases, they can get freshly collected imagery for already collected image prices. So there's two areas we think have benefit to the program. And that's it. So thank you very much for your attention. I'm happy to answer any questions or talk to anybody afterwards.
Thank you, Kim. Albert has to leave because of the conflict of events, so I'm just taking over from here. So the comments and suggestion from Dr. Zhengfeng, sorry, Dr. Zhengfeng.
Yes, when I hear the presentation, I have the feeling it's great work. It's like we build a super big. Give me a feeling like we build a super big global constellation of all images we can integrate together to providing service analysis. So I think this work is great, and this may be in the future, even from the industry area, also in the research area, we should put more energy on this direction to integrate the satellite image from a different constellation to form into a global information together. I think it's good, quite good, impressive.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zhengfeng. Dr. Tao probably has left. I can't see him. Dr. Tao? All right. So, Dr. Kim, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. So,
thank you.
Thanks a lot. So, our next speaker is Dr. Jie from Senior Technical Experts of Alibaba, China.
Okay. So can you hear me and also see me?
We can hear you.
Okay, I will share my screen. Okay. Oops.
We were able to see your screen, Jay. I believe the whole window.
It's coming. Okay.
Right. Great, we can see.
All right. Okay. Okay, everyone. Okay, thanks to have this opportunity to be here. I'm from Alibaba Cloud Intelligence. Today, what I bring is about the AI Earth. Before talking about the AI Earth, I think I should take a quick review of the history of Alibaba. Alibaba is a company which was founded in 1989, and it changed from an e-commerce company to a digital economy, which is one of kind in the world. So after the 20 years development, its business has been expanded to like the delivery, to the local service, and also the cloud computing. Okay, then. Alibaba Cloud Intelligence founded in 2009. So after 10 years development, it has been the top of the global leader in the cloud computing and artificial intelligence. So we are providing services to thousands of enterprises and like the developments and organizations in more than 200 countries in the world. So with this development, we have got achievement with our customers. And all of this achievement, I think it's mostly based on our...
Sorry, excuse
yes?
me, Jay,
Yes?
we are not able to see the slides. Like, we just can see only first slide. If you are presenting, it's not moving to the next slide. Now we can see it, that's right.
Okay, so I will show it again. So it's on the right one, about the infrastructure.
That's right. We can see now the infrastructure slide. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry. Related about the infrastructure, I think we have 80 zones, strategic zones, and in 25 cloud regions all over the world. Okay. I think as one of the leading online marketplace in China and Asia of Alibaba Cloud, so it was a natural step for us to turn our capacity of cloud computing cloud and into the services of the public services.
I'm sorry again. If you're moving the slides, you'll have to manually move the slides. Yes. So we are able to see now this cloud computing
okay, I
being
will
unlimited. Yeah.
just using this mode, maybe. Okay. So with the development of the cloud computing, which also leads to the revolution of the Earth observation, so it gives us unlimited opportunities for global Earth observation. I think we can conclude three conceptions that we have today for the global observation. First one, because of the cloud computing, the data sharing or the data service can be transformed from the traditional offline to online. And secondly, with the computing, cloud computing, and also the intelligent value added with the data, so we can have more information be exploited from the remote sensing data. And the third one, in this process, ecology of the Earth observation is formed, which can give us more opportunities and more values of the commercial values is added to us now. Okay, then we will talk about the AI Earth, which is a one-stop remote sensing data resource and intelligent value-added platform. This platform is developed by the Alibaba's cloud computing technology and in the deep learning and like the computer version actual. It was developed for the Earth observation in different industries. Now it has been used in many industry areas. The main basic of the platform is it can do the fusion analysis of multi-resources Earth observation data, like the remote sensing, the drone data, like the IoT, the meteorological data actual. All of this data are fusion and merged, which bring us a new insight of the Earth. I think with this platform, we can transform the traditionally of the to see the Earth and transform to understand the Earth. Okay, here shows some examples that we have used with this platform in different industries, like the multi-source data process. We can do the smart meteorology, city management, natural resources, and river government actual, like this one. So AI Earth is just one example of our practice in Earth observation. Meanwhile, we have some other cases that we have due to the GEO observation. What you can see here is a deep time digital Earth. Deep time digital Earth, it concentrated to do the research of the history of the Earth, the history revolution of the Earth. For this platform, we also joined with the advantage of Alibaba Cloud, the cloud computing, and other institutions, scientists. We use this cloud computing technology and provides some provides a big platform to the research of the history of the Earth observation. Like in this platform, we want to achieve some breakthrough of some major scientific issues of the Earth, like how the life evolution, how the climate evolution. And meanwhile, based on this platform, we set up scientist islands for the scientists to discuss, to research together. Also, this platform gathered a very big data and big knowledge atlas of our geologic Earth. So this is another case of Alibaba Cloud's practice in Earth observation. Meanwhile, we have other two cases will show the following about our business here. The first one is that we collaborated with the China meteorology industry. We set up a China meteorology professional service cloud, which is the goal is to build a wider risk management platform. With this platform, the meteorological disaster warning informations can be released in different channels, so the people can use the live data, the live meteorology data, to have more information exploited from this data and use this data to save people's lives to save the losses of these disasters. This is about our research in the meteorological industry. And also, we have collaborated with the National Astronomical Delivery. We collaborated with the astronomical observation industries, and with the scientist efforts, we have put a total of 150 trillion bits of astronomical scientific research data, which involving over 1 billion celestial bodies, is open to the whole world through the cloud. Also, in this scientific cloud, it has the largest astronomical data in this cloud. For the latest one, it was observed by China Sky Eye first data, and for the oldest data, it was observed about 100 years ago. So the data is long. Okay, talking about the future with Alibaba and the GEO cooperation. I think Alibaba will go on to do the research and do the practice in Earth observation, not only in city management, natural resources, like social welfare, but also some unlimited areas like the commercial applications. Talking about the future of the Alibaba Cloud's engagement in GEO sessions, I think we can take advantage of our advantage of the resources and services like the cloud computing service, the cloud storage, and the machine learning platform for architecture intelligence. With this information, with these advantages, I think we can go deep to participating in the GEO work program and also do some support to the technology development and service, some service related. Okay, the last one. Here is the website of the AI Earth of Alibaba Cloud. You are invited to have a try of this website and to have fun, to have a new insight with our AI Earth. Okay, that's all. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Jai. That's a great presentation and a lot of information. I would request Xianfeng to provide the message.
It's nice to hear. It's nice to hear your presentation. So, as we all know, Alibaba is a very big company in China, even the very big company in the world. So, I think Alibaba Cloud is a very big institute inside Ali. So, has many people. For example, in the AI technology, many researchers and doctors for the So I think it's very super strong power in GEO system. So I'm confused. What is the rule? I mean, how Alibaba act in between the company? So there are a lot of small companies in geoscience area. It's a very small, a lot of small companies, and the end users. Sometimes the small company providing service to the end users. So what's the roles of Alibaba with the small company? I mean, what's the role? How to?
Sometimes I think the advantage of Alibaba Cloud is about the is the resources of cloud resource, and also the technical of the artificial intelligence. And for the small company, I think maybe they have some very deep understanding of very small industry. So we can combine this together to give more insight and understanding to this very precise industry.
So I mean, do you mean that Alibaba is behind the small company to the final customer, or stand before in front of a small company to the end user? I mean, is Alibaba behind the small company or in front of the small company?
Most of the cases is in front of these small companies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jed. I can see a question, but here in which kinds of satellite data can be accessed from AIR now, but I believe we are running in short with time. So if you can quickly just kind of give the answer, or I would request Hongwell to reach out to you to discuss further.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks
Thank you.
Advice. Okay, thank you.
All right, so our next speaker is Gaetan Wolfe. He is from Latitude 40, the CEO of the company Latitude 40. So stage is yours.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
We can see. We can see you.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you, everyone. Today, I will present our solution of urban data analytics platform to support climate action planning, mainly in the city. So we started from a problem that climate change will affect more than 90% of urban areas, and mainly people and countries with developing countries, so this could be a big problem. And the other part is that the climate change could create more than 1,000 million in yearly global costs by 2050. So for this reason, we need to find a solution. In our idea, the data strategy, or the data that we can collect, is at the heart of the climate action plan. But if we look to cities, municipalities, there is a big problem. Where to find the data, how to elaborate them, how to keep this data up to date, and how to simulate the future action, the future effects of the action. So finally, also how to finance the sustainability of the city in the future. So for this reason, we worked and we created this platform. Our urban data analytics platform is based on 3 pillars. One is satellite imagery. The second one is artificial intelligence and machine learning. Third, finally, the geospatial analysis. All these 3 technical pillars offer simple and effective climate action plan. So a solution to create climate action plan, and the platform has always the data inside. Here, a very integrate VHR satellite, commercial satellite with Copernicus, also with IoT sensor, and we have this data collection system that pass all the information to our artificial intelligence and algorithms. Then we create 3 products. One is the climate dashboard for the city and the urban planners. The second one is citizen portals to demonstrate the KPI report in this transition to green and zero carbon of the city. And then we are creating a marketplace where cities can offer the carbon sequestration capability to private companies that can use this voluntary carbon credit to support their sustainability marketing. So this is a fully automated platform that offer solution to have more clear world. So in the platform we have different different blocks that are part of the climate transition. So from the green areas, the urban heat islands, the pollution level, the landfill detection, problem of hydrogeologic risk like runoff, displacement, but also the CO2 capture map and the coastal erosion. Each city can combine these detectors to create the transition plan for the specific city. So our platform offers to cities high accuracy, but totally automated, not geek user. Every city can use our platform without any specific remote sensing or artificial intelligence skills, historical data, and the multi-parameter analysis. So the 3 steps are the analysis of trends, the identification of risk areas, and priority based on location of population, classification in age of peoples, and then definition of the action plans and the KPI monitoring. The other solution is that with our algorithms, we can create the city carbon sequestration map, so we can identify how many CO2 green infrastructure of a city can capture, and then we offer these carbon credits on a marketplace. Very simple. The private company, B2B, but also private people can browse the city project, select the project that fit with their strategy, buy credits, monitor the benefit for the world, and share with a dedicated page the impact with the stakeholder. So this is our market. We are in the market, and we have an aggressive at the moment. We are monitoring different very few cities in Europe, around 10, but we have an aggressive plan to reach in 2030 1,500 cities with our platform, and with our business model that is very simple because we offer totally software as a service solution. So a monthly fee based on the dimension of the city for the climate plans and city monitoring, and we offer this credit to B2B customer, and we retain a small fee in this transaction. We have a great team. We work together for more than 10 years. We worked in different large companies, and we have the capability to scale this company. So if you like to join the climate revolution, we are here, and we are happy to answer to your question. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, and this is my last slide.
Thank you so much, Gaetano. It's a great presentation. Zhenfeng, your citations, please.
I
cannot hear.
Okay, so you give me the feeling it's a new and something very interesting to integrate the satellite data, and we maybe in future integrate the city. I think the big data, using big data to embed the city environment and parameters is very important. So besides the satellite image, maybe in the future we need to integrate data like people's mobility pattern, people's movement data, and even some other big data is into the other data sources into the analysis. I think this is a little very meaningful and useful system, but need a lot of more effort.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. So
thank you.
We also do some similar project. Great.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Gaetano, for your presentation. And I think we have reached to our last presentation of the session. And thank you, Zhenfeng, for your all suggestions and comments and being with us throughout the session. So now I would request, since we are, I believe we are running a little late, so all of you to connect to the next session. There is a link. We will have to disconnect and join other session. Thank you so much to all the speakers and all the delegates and participants. Thank you. Has started, so thank you so much for joining in this session. I know it got delayed quite a lot, but I think it would be a great session as having three of us together. Prashant, this moderation is with you. You would be moderating the session, so I would leave it to Massimiliano, I hope I have correctly pronounced her name, and Gunter. And please go ahead with your presentation. Maybe we'll start with Massimiliano and followed by Gunter and Prashant. It's up to you how you are going to have this session moderated. So I'll mute myself and stage is yours, gentlemen.
All right. Well, thank you so much. For the audience that's listening, we've lost a panelist due to connectivity issues. So I think what we'll do is we'll have a free-flowing discussion. Our panelists today, Gunter Schreier and Massimiliano Vitali, have long pedigrees and histories in our business, and I would invite them to show their presentations that they've done for everybody, and also to introduce themselves and tell us what they're all about. Over to you, Massimiliano.
All right. Thanks so much for the introduction. So I'm going to share my screen now. All right, that should be up on the screen now.
Yeah, we can see it.
All right, perfect. So, well, thanks you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be with this panel today. My name is Massimiliano Vitale. I'm SVP of Imagery and Analytics at Planet. And today I want to give you like a little bit of an introduction about our company and how we see playing into this domain. So I want to start, for those who knows us already for a while, you may have heard this quite a bit. But really, like from the early days of the garage, like our team was really driven by this one statement: you cannot fix what you cannot see. And with that in mind, we built a company around one mission, which is to make, to image the whole world every single day and make global change visible, accessible, and actionable. It took us like quite a bit of time to get there, but like some 460 satellites launches after, we're operating like the world's largest constellation of Earth observation satellites. Every day, more than 130 of our DOVE satellites, which has like 3U CubeSat, are imaging every location on the landmass of Earth at a resolution between 3 and 4 meters with 8 spectral bands. This data set over the years has already amounted to more than 1,700 images of every single point of the landmass on Earth. Our second constellation, what we call like the SkySats, has a different role. So while the DOVE satellites are continuously scanning the Earth looking for meaningful changes, we can use the SkySat to point at any of those locations and take up to 7 images per day or more of a particular location at a 50 centimeter resolution. So you see that basically what we built is a machine that can scan the Earth, detect meaningful change, and then zoom in and take a high resolution image to really understand what that change is all about. You might be asking, why is that important? Well, I think it's very important because change happens very quickly on our planet. In a span of a day, like somebody is opening like an illegal logging road in the middle of a tropical forest. And if that is detected in time, authorities can help preventing loss of forest and reduce emissions of greenhouse gases. Somewhere else in the same day, like an airplane takes off from an airport somewhere, and a government can maintain situational awareness and use that information to potentially reduce conflict. On the same day, somewhere in an agricultural area, a field starts to show early signs of a pest or a disease. And if that change is detected timely, a farmer can jump in and take swift action and saves their crop. So what I'm trying to get at is, across many industries, from agriculture to intelligence to finance to forest management, geospatial data, Earth observation data is imperative to solving some of the world's toughest challenges. And companies like Planet play a role and we decided to do this by establishing a subscription feed. So we provide regular data feeds and information feeds to a variety of verticals. And we partner with private and government actors to really build an ecosystem that allows us to bridge the gap to the actual insights that the market needs. So again, it took us quite a bit of time to get there. Today we sit on the system that continuously scans the Earth and provides this data. And tomorrow, we're building towards an application ecosystem that can really turn this data into meaningful insights. Summarizing, I really think Planet can provide and help sustainability in three meaningful ways. One is to use the data to measure and monitor social and ecological change at scale. The other one is by using this data to enable an inclusive and efficient operations from agriculture to forest management. And last but not least, by using this data to improve transparency and reporting, so that if we can build trusted indicators of sustainability, then we can really help aligning capital and climate towards the same objective. So I want to close this quick introduction by saying that, Earth observation industry, Planet, and this community at large really has a huge opportunity today. And that opportunity is to help setting the standards by which governments, organizations, and markets measure, act, report, and most importantly, are held accountable for their sustainability-related progress. This is a huge challenge, and we really should work together towards this goal. And today I'm really looking forward to the discussion with the rest of the panel. Thank you. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand it over to you, Prashant.
Thank you, Massimiliano. Prashant, how do you want to have? You want to have Guntar also to present, and then we take the discussion, or how do you?
Absolutely. Why don't we have? Right. Yeah. Why don't we have Guntar do his presentation?
So I share my screen now.
Yes, go ahead, Guntar.
Yeah. You see it?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this panel. And I guess my function in this panel is to present the public side on this public-private partnerships. And I won't go into detail into the missions we have done so, but to give an example on public-private partnership based on what we did specifically on these two birds, the TerraSAR-X and the Tandem-X satellite. This kind of complements also what Massimiliano was saying, because this is exploring the radar side of the electromagnetic spectrum within a public-private partnership, though our private partner is not a startup company, but well-established, now called Airbus Defense and Space. So what is it about specifically with the partnership? TerraSAR-X and Tandem-X are the first German national civil radar satellites. Having said so, we have some joint missions together with NASA, JPL, SIR-C, SIR-B, the shuttle radar topography mission, and TerraSAR-X in the X-band system is basically continuing this. The birds have been launched in 2007 and 2010. Especially TerraSAR-X is well beyond the expected lifetime, twice the expected lifetime. I just checked, Prashant, we are still a couple of years away from the lifetime of RADARSAT-1, the Canadian radar satellite, but maybe we will reach it also with TerraSAR-X. As mentioned, it's a public-private partnership, and looking to the WGIC spectrum of characterizing public-private partnerships. This is also special in that the public part is not just saying, okay, give me the data or operate a spacecraft on behalf of the government, but also is contributing with actual operations. So DLR is one of the largest aerospace research centers in Europe, is also operating ground segments and space segment. So the mission operations, as well as the entire payload data ground segment operations, including antenna data reception, including processing, was a public contribution by DLR to this public-private partnership. Set aside that this is also a government public-private partnership. And again, our partner here in this was at this time, 2010, called EADS Astrium, now Airbus Space and Defense. And specifically for the commercial distribution of the data, a company called Infoterra GmbH was created in Germany for this very purpose. The data, as you know, is about also exploring new domains of imaging. One of the results, not exclusively with TerraSAR-X, but really driven to operational needs and operational capabilities with TerraSAR-X, is interferometry. Here a nice example of raising ground and soil on Santorini Island with TerraSAR-X. And the other big achievements next to interferometry is, of course, digital elevation model. So one of the big achievements of TandemX is the global TandemX elevation model with a posting of 12.12 meter. Airbus is selling this as the World DEM elevation model, and this World DEM elevation model is also now used as a reference in Copernicus for elevation, correcting and calibrating also data from other satellites, Sentinel-2, Sentinel-1, to name a few. Yeah, this is also a nice site. This is kind of saying and depicting the resolution of TandemX here in a nuclear test site in Nevada. And in fact, our next generation of satellite is going to lower this posting from 12 by 12 meters to lower than 5 by 5 meters. What are the achievements of this public-private partnership, this very special public-private partnership, is that the public part is not only acting as the demand side, say, give me data for my government duties, but also acting as a public science and engineering part. So I guess our contribution, DLR contribution to the public-private partnership, helped both. We are understanding the let's say, commercial and operational demands of our private partner, Airbus. And on the other end, we are helping our private partner, to introduce new science mode, new imaging modes while in flight, and to mastermind this very sophisticated tandem flight operations with these two satellites flying in a tandem configuration and generating this World DEM. It's again not just generating elevation model, it's a lots of science and engineering behind this. There is, of course, and we can expand this in the discussion, there are challenges. TerraSAR-X and TandemX were the first two satellites in Germany which were affected or subject to the then created new National Satellite Data Security Act. Radar and high resolution is just too sensitive to give it free away to everybody in the world. There is another challenge that the PPP was foreseen for the lifetime of the satellite, but what happens in general if the lifetime expects your wildest dreams, like double or twice the lifetime, there is a challenge. And there is, of course, a challenge often to delineate the difference between commercial and science, DLR in part in charge for science and Airbus in part for commercial. There were some discussions. And so therefore, it's not just always saying this is has big achievements. It has big achievements, but we also have experienced several challenges, which I guess we masterminded in this PPP. And I'm happy to contribute to this panel with our experience. Thank you. I think I then now stop my sharing the screen. Yeah.
Fantastic. So in my previous life, I had a little bit to do with satellite ground station receptions as the head of the Canada Centre for Mapping and Earth Observation in Inuvik. So I got the opportunity to have discussions with both Planet and with DLR Airbus And what struck me as particularly relevant in the context of public-private partnerships is the issue of the nature of the business model innovation around the public-private partnership. And I'd like to turn the attention of both the panelists to what I consider to be the planet model of business model innovation and the embrace of a public-private partnership. Is that it was technology-led innovation that led to the breakthroughs through miniaturization, through the creation and entry into the new space category of the geospatial community. And Massimiliano, if you can speak a little bit about the factors that enabled you to embrace more of a commercial space relationship with public service or public good providers. And Gunther, what always struck me as being fascinating and visionary about the German approach was how the innovation cycle was conceptualized in both the public sector through DLR and the construct and the construction of the science in that context, and then the commercialization potential being delivered through the arm of Airbus and GmbH and the other components. I thought it was really visionary because if I remember correctly, our conversations had you explaining to me that it was back in the late 70s that the big DLR construct brought together a number of elements in Germany. And so it was an organizationally led innovation. So two very different approaches, both of them very visionary, one technology push, the other much more from a state of organizational change that led to the creation of the PPP models. So maybe some thoughts in terms of the unique challenges around a technology-led innovation, Massimiliano, and Gunther around the organizational ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that is an excellent topic. So in terms of how Planet was able to drive this technological innovation, I think it fundamentally it's the coincidence of three main trends that came together. I think on one side you mentioned that the availability of extremely reliable miniaturized electronic components that have been built for different industries. Like if we think about the cell phones that we carry with us every single day, these machines are incredibly compact and incredibly powerful. And at some point in time, our founders thought well, this thing might as well fly in space and actually takes picture of the Earth. And crazy as it may have sounded back in the days, this is one of the ideas that really spur the development. So you have this miniaturization of electronic, which has been built in millions of units. So extremely well tested, extremely well understood, and very cost effectively built. So that is one side of the equation. Then you have around the same time, we started to see the ability to get into space very often initially through the ISS, refurbishing flights, where you could effectively have an astronaut carrying a little suitcase with a few satellites every couple of months. And so that enabled a new paradigm that we call the agile aerospace, where you do some of your design and some amount of testing, but very quickly you build a system that you think it's going to work. You take it to space, and in this hostile environment, you do your testing, you learn your hard lessons, you take these lessons back on Earth, iterate quickly, and go back in space again with a new generation. And we have done this effectively every 3 months, with 16 generations of satellite builds. And then last but not least, the availability of incredibly powerful cloud computing techniques meant that we can not only generate this huge amount of data, but we can also process it and distribute it to users everywhere in the world. If I think back in the days of Rapid Eye, effectively we were sitting on what at the time looked like a really big amount of data, and we were not able to process it all. So we would only process the tiny amount that some customers wanted. Like today, we are able to process this entire data, spot change at global scale, and produce indicators for business that need this type of information. So I think those are like the three factors that came together. And then I think like the challenge of like technologically driven innovation is making the market. Like, you know, we had a vision. We thought this is something that the world needs for what we think some very valid reason, and it takes time to actually go find market fit. And this happens by, you know, engaging with scientists, engaging with businesses, with government organizations, and finally getting together on what is the type of information product that the user really needs.
Great, thank you. Gunther, on the organizational side?
Yeah, on the organizational side, Prashant, as you mentioned already, the line of development and engineering in radars, interdecapital radar, has a long history inside DLR and also with German industry to some extent. So we very early jumped on invitation from NASA again to join and have spaceborne missions. We operate our aircraft, experimental aircraft, to test out new equipment, new radar modes. This, by the way, we had also in common with our good and trusted partners from Canada, amongst them CCRS, the former CCRS, and also Canadian companies, which are very much involved in radar, such as MDA. So this is also, back in these days, a very long partnership in science and research. And therefore, we're very eager to continue our experience with about, I would say, in the Radar Institute, in several other institutes, about 300, 400 researchers and engineers working on this topic, to have this really done in space with a continuation of a radar satellite. So, and it was also clear from the very beginning that this public-private partnership I was talking about in TerraSat and Tandem is not just about the government as a customer and the private side, the industry as the operator and the service deliverer, but that this kind of engineering and the skills of my DLR colleagues should be involved from the very beginning in this kind of missions. In fact, it was also this pure, let's say, private customer as a demand organization, the government as a customer, let's say this way, was also a little bit challenged that TerraSat-X from the day one was defined as a civil satellite. So I guess Canada has opted to have a RadarSat data also for government defense and security applications. Also our Italian colleagues, Cosmo SkyMed, also a public-private partnership in this end. Also, the Italian defense has access, but our Ministry of Defense opted to have their own classified radar satellites. So this was, of course, from the onset, a little bit a challenge for, let's say, getting the business plan together for Airbus and others. But nevertheless, with these new innovative modes and the very high resolutions and the interferometry, I think we have both explored new technologies, new markets, technologies like interferometry, which are now established with every radar satellite and Sentinel-1, to name it, and is a basis now. And so I guess the contribution or this play between engineering, science, and innovation on one end, and industry operations and industrial customers on the other end, went very well, is still going on very well. Both birds are still operational in the public-private partnership.
Excellent. So one of the things that the World Geospatial Industry Council looked at when it examined public-private partnerships were a number of criteria that defined the business model of public-private partnerships. And what was found at the time was that the concept was not completely understood, and traditional ways of contracting between governments and the private sectors were often deemed to be public-private partnerships, when in reality it was just a contracting relationship. Massimiliano, would you say that Planet, because of its push, as you called it, towards market fit, has really moved the yardstick away from the concept of a public-private partnership and more to a market-driven approach to new space, and is an example of a company that can thrive with vertical support and, of course, some level of government contracting. And is it because you've hit and you've come from a culture and a set of verticals that are very large in the US market and then grown globally? Because what's interesting, and with my participation in the old CCMEO and CCRS, we certainly didn't have the same level of financing, the same level of weight, as it were, in the international community. So we often looked at very defined public-private partnerships, and in that sense, partnered with DLR, partnered with Airbus, which had a very clear sense of the public sector being actively involved to actually incent and steer and create a market, as opposed to going out and trying to fit to the market. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, from both of you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, to what extent we are really being able to drive change in the way like governments or organizations are thinking about procurement. I think that is a bit of a process where all the actors bring their new ideas, and so I think we're evolving together. I think what I can say from our perspective is that we have been trying, we're working every day to establish a commercial business. So we're not advocating for being plain. We're not advocating for grants or that type of business relationship. I don't think this is how startup can thrive. So we're really building a company that's based on some products that like a standard product that you can deliver in a very efficient, very streamlined fashion to a large number of actors to address an entire industry or a market segment, right? So this is very different from some of the bespoke procurement that have been more common in the traditional government procurement scheme. So that's the type of relationship that we really try to always propose when we engage in partnerships. And I think that is something that really helps the industry taking their game to the next level to really scale. Because if you're building every time a new project, you almost start from scratch every time. Yes, you carry some lessons and some technology from the past, but you're really starting almost from scratch every time. Whereas if you're building a product, you can bit by bit make the product better and better and really address the need of that particular market. So I think that's how I look at those partnerships. And I think the other piece is that there is many different schemes, I agree, but I think fundamentally I think there is two factors that are important. On one side is both parties invest in the project, otherwise it's not really a partnership, right? And this investment can take the form of a financial commitment that a government organization can make for the long run to guarantee some amount of funds that go into the build out of this new product. But it can also be expertise related. And Gunther with TerraSAR X, I think addressed that perfectly well. Sometimes you need this particular type of expertise to build an entirely new technology that can then become a product for the market. And the other piece is in that type of partnership, you want both parties to contribute to societal benefit and maybe also have a common commercial purpose.
Yeah. Again, when I read this WGIC report on the characterization of public-private partnerships, it became clear that there is no one single definition of a public-private partnership. So the range starts from when a government or a public partner says, I guarantee you, company, to buy your data for the next couple of years. And I don't interfere with your business. It's just a partnership in I'm a customer. I'm a trusted customer for the next couple of years. But the challenge in all these partnerships is really the sustainability. The challenge for the government is to commit beyond, let's say, fiscal years, beyond plans, beyond governments for the next couple of years to be a partner. Also in buying data. You have the example of like Copernicus, you have the Copernicus third-party programs. You wouldn't say Copernicus, or in this way, the European Commission is a public partner for PPPs, but it's a customer who guarantees a lot of other companies in Europe to have a sales basis, at least a little bit sales to the European Commission, to the European Copernicus program. But you won't find in Brussels, nor in the government in Berlin, or maybe in Ottawa, any policy guy says, I commit myself for the next 12 years to buy your data. That's legally a challenge for governments. Also committing themselves to real public-private partnerships, because legally, at least my understanding of how the government works, they cannot have a partnership in perpetually. They have to say, I do it for the next 7 years, and then you are sustainable. You go ahead, you go to the free market, I'm out of this business. And again, if you have a satellite living then longer than 7 years, you have to find a way, a compromise, a good solution to have everybody happy with this stuff. So the issue in public-private partnerships is a continuity, at least for the public-private partnerships in the satellite market. I see that none of these are meant for eternity, but always for prime pumping, getting some companies, some new technology off the ground, and then companies should be left alone or should be on their own to develop this further. Whether this is good or bad, I cannot judge. There are good things in this and there are challenging things in this. As I mentioned, RadarSat-1, TerraSat Tandem and Cosmo are this kind of private partnerships, with the difference that on the Canadian and the Italian side, you have also the defense guys as a customer on this side.
Okay, well, those are both fascinating answers for different reasons, and I think what it brings me to is the whole notion of the viability of the concept of a public-private partnership in the Earth observation realm is with mounting debt loads across the G7 countries, with governments very concerned about significant large-scale expenditures in the area of climate resistance and climate resilience. What do you guys see as the future of the public-private partnership in the Earth observation business? Or do you see it becoming increasingly market intensive? Now, Massimiliano, Planet obviously has demonstrated that you can survive in that kind of market intensity. And have a customer base that allows you to thrive. Gunther, you and I both know that in the government context, there are all those constraints that you've raised, and as governments rise and fall, priorities will change as well. And so do the PPPs become a viable option in the Earth observation business?
Maybe I start with, because you have forgotten a third player in this game, is finance. So when we conceived TerraSat or Rapid Eye, when this is conceived, if you would have gone to a venture capital in the early 2000s, say, look, I'm building here a satellite system, can you give me money? They would say, you're crazy, go away from me. Now the market of getting financed with startup companies and Earth observation, or like Planet now going to the stock exchange, going public, is a completely different picture than 10, 15, 20 years ago. So as a new company saying, I have to do a massive investment to get my satellite system or whatever, my infrastructure on ground, you have either your option to say, I go for a kind of public-private partnership, I go for the government, I ask for subsidies, Or you say, no, I go to the financial market. I'm attracting venture capital companies or other investors. And this is another option rather than going for public-private partnership. It's a different game, I know. I also would not say I fully understand the game of venture capital and finance, but it's now a valid way for new companies to say, I'm going off ground with my satellite system, and I don't rely on governmental money to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Gunther, you make a great point. I don't know that there is an either-or answer to that question. I think, like, it's very true that, I think, as a startup company, you want to thrive on a sustainable commercial business model. I also think that it's important that governments embrace commercial services whenever that makes sense. Right, and I'm saying that with some caveats, because it's really like whenever that makes sense, but very often it does make sense, and that should be really well considered. On the other side, I think that as a society, as a community, we're facing today some really tough challenges, from environmental crisis, biodiversity loss, climate change. We need to address these challenges as quickly as we possibly can. And I think that we cannot act in isolation. So I think in certain cases, like a PPP is not an option. It's almost like a necessity. I think there are areas where it makes a ton of sense for the private sector and the public sector to get together and join forces and get the best of the two worlds, which could be, the public sector may use the private sector ability to innovate quickly, and their agility and their ability to do things without a lot of red taping. And the private sector, like, when you're doing something that's completely new, or it's like extremely complex and innovative from a technology perspective, you may need that funding, the long-term vision, the long-term commitment to do something for the public good reason. And so I think we're really looking at a paradigm shift where all those actors, private and commercial, like, can operate independently, but sometimes also together and collaborate rather than compete. And again, just final point, I think, like, if you ask any new space company, they're going to say, like, we don't need a grant. We don't need, like, a subsidy. We need a customer that can engage, and this customer can be private. It can be a big corporation or the government that can provide long-term support for a really risky venture. And, it sounds like easy, but if you look at SpaceX and NASA, I think this is a really good example of how that work or can work in practical ways.
So both of you have touched on something that's very important in the sense that the concept of the public-private partnership is always it's an opportunity to recognize that no one organization, no one entity in the private sector, or no one entity in the governmental sector can go it on its own anymore. And there's a recognition that the challenges are very significant, and it requires multiple partners to move forward. But when you think back to the noble ambitions of NASA in the 1960s, and the sense of science, that sense of wonder, that sense of inspiration for humanity. And now in Earth observation, I think we're somewhat lucky and we're somewhat shielded in that we recognize that there's still a very significant public interest in delivering the kind of services and products we deliver. But when we go to venture capitalists now in our industry, and I, with my new AI company, I'm doing the same thing. I've often wondered whether it's going to change the delivery of the public interest, because sometimes the venture capitalists, the angel investors, are looking at much shorter timeframes for payback. So does it affect our ability to do what we need to do for humanity And does it fundamentally change our notion of being able to invest in science? I know I might be putting you guys on some difficult on a difficult seat to answer that question. So, if you want to plead the fifth, you're welcome to plead the fifth.
Yeah, maybe I can start in this way. This is absolutely right. I mean, you have areas and domain where the public need for Earth observation data was being established for a long time. Let's say metrology. Weather satellites are a common good, are operated by big organizations, done and constructed and built by companies. But the operations and the entire resources for this weather satellite system is coming from public money from the first time. And we recognize now, with the COP26 in Glasgow being over, that Earth observation satellites are a very, very significant part of monitoring what we hopefully going to change to mitigate and fight climate change. Some NASA, European Commission with Copernicus, NASA with their systems, others, Japanese, China, they of course have a core satellite system which says, independent from the public delivery, which we need in higher resolution, in daily revisit, we're going to operate a core set of Earth observation satellites, which are under public funding, public operation, let's say contracted also in operations to industrial partners, whatever. But the control over the satellite is a public control. But this is then supplemented by, as Massimiliano said, the capability of higher resolution, daily resolution, other bands, other capabilities by public. So I see this kind of collaboration between the core sets of public governmental organizational satellites, the weather satellites, the environmental satellites, and the additional capabilities of private satellites. This is maybe a success story. I hope it's a success story. And I hope it will continue. And I hope that for some capabilities, like permanent observation, higher resolution, there's more and more of this kind of operational and commercial data or private data being used.
Great. We're being, the bell is tolling for us. We have 2 minutes left. Massimiliano, 2 minutes to you.
Okay, great. So I think like Gunther made a few really good points. I think from my perspective, like, to your initial question, Prashant, like, is the venture capitalist in the private company driving short-term gains for long-term objectives? I think it's possible. I think as an entrepreneur, like, you probably want to find an investor that is in for the long run. And my impression is that, that world is really coming to the realization that those challenges are so important that you need to stick for the long term and really drive that innovation for this long-term objective that is going to be idealistic here, but it's going to make like the world a better place, a safer place. So that's how I like to think about it.
Well, and that's a wonderful note to end on. And I want to thank you too for being such wonderful panelists and making this all that enjoyable. Staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning for me here in Ottawa. So I will have to have a nice cup of. Actually, if I had one of those German beer we had together, Gunther, a few years back, that would have.
Not in the morning, Prashant. Take your coffee or tea.
Well, I'm going to bed though. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'll just take 1 minute to thank each of you, Massimiliano. It's a great presentation, and you all have participated. Prashant, is extremely, very valid discussion we had, and I think I'm sure many of us have many questions. So I would request the people who have joined here, if you have any question, any kind of discussion, can directly reach out to you, I hope. And thank you again for all of your time, and sorry for this delay again. And please stay for the next station, to all the participants. Thank you to three of you, Prashant, Gunther, and Massimiliano. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. So we're going to take a 5 minutes break, and we will be back after 5 minutes in the same session with the new panel on funders. So please stay with us, to all the participants and delegates, and see you after 5 minutes. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. Welcome to this session of industry tracking today, and it's a panel discussion we have. We finished a very wonderful panel discussion in PPP, and this discussion just briefing quickly for all the participants. It is on funders. And we have 4 panelists today. Quickly, I'll just introduce. And we have the moderator from Davis Cook, Director JustBase, and the panelists are Mike Sage from CEO Structured Finance Solution, Mahesh Murthy from Exit Space, Founder and Director, Rick Dunn, Statologic, CFO of Statologic, and we have Devin Govinda from Lion Pride Investment Holdings. He's the CEO of the company. So, Davis, I would hand over to you for moderating the session. And once again, welcome you all. We look forward to have a great discussion ahead.
Great, thank you so much, Satyarupa. So welcome everyone, and it's a great pleasure to have you all today. I think this question of funding is critical for for the next stage of our development as a kind of global space community. And so one thing that we want to discuss is trying to understand how we are able to access finance, what are the challenges about finance that both from an institutional point of view and an investor point of view, as well as from a startup point of view, what are the challenges that we need to face? And so the speakers that we have today will unpack some of these questions and hopefully shed some light on how we can invest wisely into building a kind of more efficient and more equitable and a more inclusive space community in future. So the speakers today cover both the receivers and the providers of capital, and so we're going to hear, I think, hopefully both of these different perspectives. What I'd like to ask, and maybe Rick, I'll start with you. What are the biggest constraints that you've faced as an entrepreneur getting funding for space-related businesses?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Davis. And let me start by apologizing. I'm having some technical difficulties with my camera, so I apologize for that. But it is 5 a.m. here where I'm calling from, so maybe that's best. But that's a great question. I think that for us at Satellogic, I think this what we've experienced will resonate with many folks that are out fundraising. But we've done and are doing things that simply haven't been done before and haven't been possible until recently. And that's hard. Space is hard. We had, for example, we had to completely reinvent how high resolution Earth observation satellites are built, because we were trying to achieve not just a 10 or 20% advantage. We were trying to achieve 1,000x cost advantage over the existing technology. And then we set out to massively expand the market for high resolution data from roughly 5 billion today to 140 billion in the next several years. And so that's those things are hard to do technically, and it's especially hard to convince astute investors of the opportunity and your team's ability to execute technically, commercially, and strategically at the time when you most need the funding. And there's an old saying that that banks are there for you exactly when you don't need them, and they're harder to find when you do need them. And so it's that's it's an age-old challenge, I think. But for investors, there's a fine line between being too early and being too late. And so I think convincing them that the time is now, and that they're in the sweet spot to really ride the wave is critical.
Thanks so much, Rick. And maybe you'd raised the question of banks. Mike, as you know, is CEO for F&B Structured Finance, which is First National Bank, a big lender here in South Africa and one of the biggest agricultural lenders across the continent of Africa. Mike, what are your thoughts? Like, what are the kind of challenges and characteristics that you look for in an investment, as a big institutional and organized investor?
Yeah, so thanks so much, Davis and Rick. Thank you for setting that up. I suppose, for banks traditionally, we provide a wide range of capital, probably in the further down the risk spectrum than venture capital. So we'd normally typically kind of look in the equity spectrum for companies that already were generating profitable cash flows, that had kind of strong management teams, and particularly in good, I suppose, markets where they had some space, excuse the pun, and also had some good growth prospects. So and I suppose that filters a bit into debt. Debt is or senior debt is particularly around the ability to service that debt and the willingness and ability to do that. So unfortunately, for startup nature businesses, banking isn't necessarily the best kind of capital raising tool that you have. We are a bit more of a kind of mature, I guess, a capital provider, and that kind of does count us out to some of the ventures that take place in the overall kind of space tech environment. So yeah, but certainly we'd be very keen to look at anything that was a little bit further down the line in terms of generating cash. That would be a bit more of what we used to and good at.
No, that absolutely makes sense. And you kind of raised the question of early stage funding. Devon, from your perspective, how do you manage some of the risks that you'd see in an early stage startup, particularly in the space sector, which has high capital costs? How do you balance these kinds of questions?
So Davis, one of the key things for us is the founding team. The actual composition of the team, because it's startup in nature, we want them to have some kind of track record, or they should have done something like this before. We certainly don't want a team of part-timers kind of doing it, moonlighting. We also look for founders that have some skin in the game. So we want them coupled to us at the hip. So when things go bad, we all hurt equally. So we look for that in founders. And then I think the key thing when we're making these decisions, before we get into the risk, is understanding what problem we're trying to solve. And oftentimes, we get people that love pieces of technology, develop a product, and then look to solve a problem. So it's always the solution looking for the problem. We want to focus on, what are we trying to solve? And if the founder has a very clear vision on that, that compels us to have a look at it better, closer. One of the things that, from a risk perspective that we focus on, there's two risks that we try to manage. The one is execution risk and the other is market risk. And we often find that, with execution risk, we generally have, a big enough support structure to assist a founder. Especially if it's a single founder, but if it's a team, we can help them build other capabilities to execute whatever their product offering is. The risk that we can't really take on as VCs is the market risk. So we need to be very confident that there is a market for whatever the solution is or whatever the product is or service is. People are willing to pay for that. And, so that the founders actually have to do the legwork to try and understand what that market is and be able to demonstrate to us that they've taken all necessary measures to kind of mitigate those risks. The key thing that most founders do is they move to what's called, in venture capital terms, the minimum viable product, and they try to get there as quickly as possible. The founders that have not even written a line of code, what we would say is if they've got a pretty good vision of their product, develop a series of minimum viable tests. So define the hypothesis that you want to test, go out there in the market and test this, because this will give you real feedback. If you describe the problem, tell people what you're doing, maybe have a little mock-up of what the offering would look like, you'll very quickly get to understand whether potential customers are willing to pay. You may even get a feel for the price point, and the price point can vary. I'm willing to pay a subscription of X dollars a month versus Y, depending on the pain points that the customer has that you're trying to solve. So I think for us, the key things will always be the team, the problems that you're trying to solve, and have you tested the market well enough to know that you've got a viable product.
Thanks, David. And so, I think this question of a founding team and execution, just coming back to one of the early points you made, I think is really critical. And so, Rick, I don't know if you're able to share some of the story, I guess, of how you've, SatLogic kind of migrated. So, SatLogic established 2010, two founders who've been working in the space sector. And now, you're at a point where the company's raising, in the tens of millions of dollars, and this is a multinational. So you've moved from a small firm to a big firm. And so I think there's two questions that I'm curious about. One is, as a space tech startup, and you're not in the startup kind of world anymore, but it's been an 11-year journey, and that is different from much of the commonly held understanding of startups, which have a much shorter time frame. So there's one question around how do you manage this much longer investment cycle, and then also how have you moved from kind of the VC world that Devon's been talking about, with founders with expertise but not like this big team, to a world from a funding perspective in where Mike was talking about, which is like the bigger bank, the debt sort of senior debt and equity kind of plays, and then those later stages of finances. How has SatLogic as a company evolved over that time?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that one of the things that's really interesting about the SatLogic story is that if you look at the vision that our founders had some 10 years ago for the company, and to Devon's point, the problem that we were trying to solve, it's unchanged and it's unwavering. We're trying to solve some of the most pressing problems that are facing our world around food production, migration, water supply, climate change, and so forth. And we believe that Earth observation data is the key to solving or informing many of those decisions. And so I think early on, the first question was really validating, we knew it was a problem that data could solve. The question was, where does that data come from? And we spent a bit of time exploring that before we landed on low Earth orbit satellites as a means of solving the problem and providing that data. And then it was a question of, okay, well, why hasn't this been done before? And it was really the inability previously to reach the right combination of resolution, frequency, and cost to really effectively democratize access to that information. And so the team was very focused on the technical side of things. We felt like we had a pretty good bead on the problem that we were trying to solve, and what the potential addressable market was for that product once we had a solution. And so the early years were very much focused on the technical side of things and de-risking our model to the extent that we could, and that was critical from an investor's perspective. And I think that having our technology proven in orbit, we've launched 21 satellites now, and today We have 17 that are active and have more high resolution capture capacity than anyone else in the industry. And that significantly de-risks the model from an investor's perspective. And you know, I joined the team about 3 years ago, and that was really at a time when we felt like, you know, we had the solutions from a technical perspective, we had good protection around our intellectual property, and now it was really time to demonstrate that product market fit and start to go after the commercial side of the business model and start to execute on that, and building a team you know, around us that could assist in that regard, and a team that could scale given the growth that we were anticipating was critical. But I think really, you know, bootstrapping early on and improving your technology, de-risking the model as much as you can, but not waiting too long before you start to build that team around you that's going to really help you scale was critical for us.
No, thanks. And so, you know, I think this question of de-risking is important. And from an investor point of view, you know, as a VC investor, you would be looking, of course, for a return on that investor, you know, on that investment, generally speaking. On more of the institutional side, and this is kind of, Mike, maybe where you can sort of add in here, is my understanding is that this is not just about a direct financial return on investment, but that there is a really great opportunity to connect these kinds of technologies with a broader customer base. And so, you know, institutional investors may see a broader strategic investment into this area. You know, with something like downstream Earth observation data being, you know, often used in, for example, an agricultural setting, amongst other things, how do you see this connection from, or the change of moving from purely a financial investment, which is where many VCs play, not exclusively, but many of them, to a kind of institutional investor where there are more important linkages with your own downstream customers? So how do you integrate this technology into your own kind of business models from the perspective of a more institutional investor?
Yeah, thanks, David. So, I mean, for us, I suppose there are many, I guess, applications of this type of technology that can reach into financial services. So for example, you know, you mentioned that we are very big capital providers, substantial capital providers into the agricultural space. And so for us, you know, certainly weather data, water data can certainly go a long way in mitigating all sorts of capital that is put to work and at risk on the continent. So that would certainly be very important information for us, you know, in terms of identifying, you know, what can or cannot be done in terms of utilizing that data. I think for us as well, you know, we must also realize that particularly in Africa, rural South Africa, rural Africa, you know, access to the internet itself is a challenge. And so, you know, I believe that, you know, as we get more and more technology that allows us to use space to get access to the internet for lots of, I guess, non-participants at this stage, that, you know, enhance that informational flow, enhance education, you know, particularly access to financial services and capital, then, you know, that can only go a long way in trying to enhance the growth of the continent, the economic growth of the continent. So yeah, I think there are so many different angles and aspects of space tech that can filter into our business and our sector that haven't really even been fully identified yet, but they're coming, and they're coming quick, and it's incumbent on us to kind of work out exactly how best to harness that information, and particularly that data that yourself and Rick mentioned.
Perfect, thank you. And so, you know, maybe this kind of question of integration, Devin, I'll kind of pass this on to you. You know, space is one of several technologies. You know, it's a platform technology. It gets integrated with a number of other aspects. You know, there's questions of big data and artificial intelligence. There's been some really interesting tech around, you know, people experimenting with blockchain, and you know, there's a lot of different ways of these things integrating. How do you see the kind of space-based platforms as a technology integrating with other technology types and industries. So looking at this more from a platform perspective as opposed to an industry vertical.
That's a great question, Davis. You know, we essentially look at impact investing, and just picking up from what Mike said, you know, we believe that space technologies can influence and impact people all across Africa. So, you know, if you look at your global positioning, whether it's location of people, assets, especially if there's, you know, devastation, floods, hurricanes, whatever, we believe that, you know, space technologies can assist with that, especially if you couple that with IoT technology. So understanding, you know, from machines being able to communicate with each other. So we see an opportunity, you know, in that space. The other critical one is in e-commerce. You know, within the sort of next 5 to 10 years, you know, we will see the Amazon and Alibaba of Africa emerging. You know, there's already quite a few startups that are going in this direction, and you know, these would need to be supported by technologies that are both agile and flexible. You know, if you look at drone technology for delivery of product, you've got the company Zipline that's operating in Rwanda and Ghana. Is a really good example of innovation in that sense. And there could be other applications. Currently, they're focused on healthcare. You know, drone delivery definitely would be something to look at. IoT, tech in logistics and stock management for remote warehousing. And then satellite for communications and location, you know. So we know the endeavors by SpaceX with their Starlink program, which provides high speed and low latency broadband. You know, and we're expecting, I think, South Africa and Africa to start feeling the impact of that, the positive impact of that from 2023 onwards. You know, this would be ideal for connectivity over rugged terrains where people would not have accessed a high-speed internet. And there's some really fantastic use cases, you know, that they're providing in the northern part of Canada, which are very remote and isolated areas. And, you know, the promise that this has for us here in Africa, it's immense. You know, not only from a commerce perspective, but from education, healthcare, agriculture. You know, we just see those types of innovations being really sort of the next wave of technologies within Africa in the space, and in my fund, definitely the impact area.
No, wonderful. Thanks, Tom. I think maybe just in closing, it would be great to get a final sort of thought from all of the panelists. So, Rick, you know, from your side, you know, what do you see as the future for the downstream sector? Where do you see the integration of these technologies really playing a role? You know, what next for us?
Yeah, thanks, Davis. I think the future, the downstream capability of what we're doing is amazing. It's difficult for me to think of a segment or an industry capable of delivering the near-term value creation that I think Earth observation holds today. You know, I think that, you know, I'm a former wireless guy. I spent a lot of my career there. And, you know, in 1980, Bell Labs and AT&T estimated the U.S. addressable market, you know, in the year 2000 would be about 1 million subscribers. In fact, it was 100 million. So they were off by 100x. And I think that technology in particular, you know, transformed our lives, and it was simply beyond the imagination of most everyone about how impactful it would be. And I think we're in a very similar place with respect to Earth observation data. And perhaps we're not off by 100x, but but we could easily be underestimating the market by several orders of magnitude. So I think it's incumbent upon entrepreneurs to stay just laser focused on de-risking their business model. And the tendency will be to focus on technology, but you can't overlook the product market fit, the addressable market in terms of what problem you're trying to solve, and then specifically how you're going to go to market and monetize that.
Perfect. I think that the trick with exponential growth is we never know how big it is, so we may still be 100x out. Mike, last thoughts from your side?
Yeah, so I suppose just briefly from my side, I suppose, as a leading financial institution, we would really be keen to participate anywhere we can, both as users of any of this technology for data and various other aspects that can, enhance our client experience. At the same time, we would be very keen to see where we could participate in any project where there was capital required within the boundaries of our risk appetite. So yeah, for us it's such an exciting field of kind of, I guess, of expertise and endeavor, if you want to call it that, and it's so challenging and exciting. So yeah, we're just keen to participate wherever we can.
I think that excitement is common across the board. Devin, the last word is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Davis. VCs in this part of the world are still in their infancy. We're still catching up, and institutional fund managers, really aren't focused on VC funds as a means or as an asset class. Many of them invest in Process and Naspers on the JSE, which are our biggest VC funds, but they invest in them because there's liquidity. They can sell the shares at any time. Whereas in our space, you're looking at a 5 to 8 years holding period, and I think unless we start to get capital allocators in this part of the world allocating capital to venture capital itself. So these are the asset managers, the pension funds, trustees of pension funds. We haven't reached that stage yet. If you look at the Yale and Harvard foundations, and they allocate as much as 20% of the capital into venture capital, and this is not uncommon. That's one of the reasons you can have these huge investments in these massive VC funds in North America and Europe. So hopefully, we will get there. Most of the funds locally are still fairly small, but I think with time and with success in this industry, we will attract more attention.
Thank you so much. So I think all of you have given some fantastic food for thought, some challenges that you've laid ahead of us, as well as some great stories. The satellite story is an amazing one. So thank you so much. We look forward to seeing how this unfolds over time, but certainly we're at the early stage of an amazing journey in the sector. So Satrupa, thank you, and over back to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, Davis, and thank you so much to all the panelists, Rick, Mike, and Devin. It was really, really insightful, and Devin, your points, like I believe, really emerging markets, yes, there are still facing issues with VC. And Rick, Mike, thank you so much. And I also take 1 minute to thanks to all our delegates and participants who are there, and they are also participating and hearing us. And it was, very insightful. So thank you again. And this is the industry track today in the second day of GEO Week 2021. We have the last panel. So once again, thanking all of you. And we will be heading towards Industry Network now. Thank you.